Momentum.
All right.
Acceleration. Embrace the pursuit.
Hello.
David Yerman Chevron Collection.
Damn. I have as many viewers as the Crucible if you multiply mine by 1,000.
I kind of say my first concert ever was for cows. Climb up to the top of the barn and just perform. Now I still do that, listening to Apple Music, which I get through my Sapphire Reserve card. When moo can sound very close to boo, it toughens a girl up.
Oh, here we go. Alright, retard and retardettes, I'm fucking here.
Are you ready for some dishonesty, lies, and reframing?
Yes, I am. I saw Wick was in here. Yeah, so I should be moving in the next, like 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, and after that, I'm gonna set up a really nice background. I got a couple ideas. The wife and I are looking at some things, you know. Maybe a little bit of stuffy, some knickknacks.
With stuffing things?
Stuff things and knickknacks. I'm about to set up my background when I move. Touch. Let's get everything perfect, and I gotta post.
Well, that's exciting.
I'm dancing for my 6 viewers. What you doing?
What am I doing? I'm getting my stream set up here.
Yeah, I just put out all my messages to everybody and such.
Better go live for a few minutes before we actually go live. As Action Man once taught me.
From the Venture Brothers?
No, Action Man. You know Action Man?
Yeah, what's the Venture Brothers?
No, AC7.
Oh, is this a streamer?
Yeah, he's kind of famous. He's probably like one of the biggest streamers on Kick now.
Oh,
He used to be. He's still partnered here on Twitch.
Is he political?
No.
Yeah, that's probably why I don't know.
He used to do. He was a Halo guy. Then he was a Fortnite guy, and then he was a fucking ultra degenerate. He's still an ultra degenerate now. He used to be addicted to heroin, and then he decided he's just gonna smoke weed and stream every day for 14 hours instead of fucking shoot up. And now he's one of the biggest streamers in the world. He posts a lot of like stuff on like Twitter about how to like grow your shit. And he's like, if you're not doing XYZ, then you're not gonna grow. And he's usually right. People just don't want to do the shit that he did, which is just grind. He's like, yeah, I had an advantage. I was an addict, so I just made myself addicted to fucking streaming.
Which is good and all, but like, I don't know if I have the time and motivation for that. I just want to argue politics with people that are smart. The problem is finding people that are smart and or honest.
Yeah,
I have no
nobody.
problem. Like Soy will admit things. You know, we have a long DM back and forth going every day.
Abby was gonna go off on Soy. She was like, "This guy is super dishonest."
I like him. Like when I showed him he's wrong, he goes, "Yeah, you got a point." As opposed to you're just.
I like Soy. I think Soy is funny.
Yeah. Well, whereas Josiah, when you prove him wrong, he just calls you, he insults you, and then moves on to the next subject instead of saying he's wrong.
That might have something to do with the way. As you tell me so.
I don't know, in DMs, I'm pretty polite to people. Like, behind the scenes, I try to be professional and have a professional manner.
Do you?
Generally, yeah. When I talk to people, most of my DMs are pretty friendly.
Do you?
You'd be shocked to see my back and forth with non-smoker after seeing us on panels together.
Non-smoker. like tried cooking me 2 or 3 times in a panel, and then I just cooked every living shit out of him for like 2 to 3 minutes straight. And I was like, "Nah, I've been holding that back, but you kept asking for it." And then I fucking made a point. And then after that, he was like, "I think we got off on the wrong foot." I'm like, "Yeah, I think we did, didn't we?" That's what Destiny, she was telling me today. She was like, "Yeah, I feel bad for you, Gibbs, because you're one of those people that like people will come at and they'll start all this shit with, and then when you do something, you like hold back, and then you just let them have it. And then when you let them have it, all of a sudden everybody's like, you're the bad guy." I'm like, well, they shouldn't have asked for the hands. They couldn't handle the hands. Are we ready for some lies and dishonesty tonight? Grid?
Oh, he's probably still getting switched over to Discord.
You know what, Jasmine? I'm going to bring up this in the opening for the show.
Is there like a bot or something I can get that like looks through all of my Twitter or Discord servers for like the self-promote channel and links in there?
Yeah. I don't know what it's called though, but there is a bot.
I'd like that.
I think it's Better Discord, maybe. Better Discord bot. I don't have it, but yeah, I think that's what it is. Oh, you're popping Addy for this or something. I'm exhausted. Nope, that's a muscle lock, so that would be the opposite of what I want.
Oh, send a couple of those my way.
Bro, they're fucking the truth, bro. Tell you what, when I was a real fiend, you crush that up, you know, with a little white, and then your legs would go numb, and your head would go high, and you'd have a real good time.
Alright. Oh, I gotta clean up my OBS a little bit. Alright, you get out
Woo!
of here. You, Jeb. Put Jeb
Happy with the
there,
sub.
And Jeb there, and Jeb there. Okay.
Also, the thing
Not
about
hear a
Yahoo,
thing earlier.
the thing about Yahoo is
Oh.
it'll show you both sides, but it's also one of those algorithms where if you only go one side, it goes heavy that way. But yeah. You ready for some lies and reframing
Deceit.
and dishonesty, Grid? Well, one of those J rollers the other day. 'Cause I was tired of trying to roll J's and then being like mids, shit like perfect every time. What do you know about that?
I don't know about it.
I would never. If I would have bought one of those when I was a kid, I wouldn't be able to do it now. So
I could do it. It's just you know, the
It
difference
looks
between
good.
high quality and you know, it's just like you can have perfection or you can have like get it done.
are you guys
God.
live yet? I don't want to.
I'm live, but I don't have any of my sound or anything up.
I'm live.
All right. Well, I'll keep it vague. There was a person we used to do panels with, and she and I.
Wait,
got
no,
along.
you're not up on screen yet. I'm live. You're not.
Okay, there was a chick we used to do panels with. She was in What Gibbs, and we started hanging out. And then she came on my show and acted a fool. And I said, "Please don't do that again." And she said,
Yeah, I'm debating her next Monday.
Oh, I was gonna ask. Does anyone know whatever happened there? Because I put her on mute on everything except for Discord, and told her if she took back what she said and whatever, I'd still hang. I'd go back to how it was.
She was like moving, so she like took a while to get settled on. She's on Skilling Grids too, not too long ago.
Who's that?
I'm assuming he's talking about Buck.
Yeah,
Who?
she just said Buckaroo. She said she didn't want to associate with me anymore because we had a disagreement in the DMs, and which is fine. I don't mind. I'm just here to debate people, so I respected it. And then like a week later, she started talking to me again, but never.
Yeah, she gets fired up and then like lets you go.
Yeah, well, it's like,
Who are we talking about?
Maybe that bullshit.
but like, you know, if someone says something to me and I say I'm going to honor your commitment, you're going to have to tell me that that's updated, and I no longer have to honor what you asked me to. Like, I have nothing against her. She told me she didn't want to engage with me anymore because she didn't like that I had rules on my show that I ran with then.
Rules. Who likes rules? Abby, how you doing today?
I was wondering. Oh, I'm doing good. I was wondering what happened to her. I hadn't seen her in a while. I think the last
What are we
interaction I
talking
had with
about?
her, I smashed her on abortion, and then she kind of dipped out of the chat for a little while.
I still don't know who we're talking about.
Buckaroo, bro.
Big Pop.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I hadn't seen her in a while either. I didn't think I pissed her off or anything. She just hasn't
No,
been around.
she moved. She was moving.
Yeah, I
Ah.
remember that. But she still hasn't been back.
She came back last week.
I mean, to my show, bro.
Yeah, I'm saying she came back to
It's all
all
about
shows.
me, bro. It's all
She
about
came,
me.
she came back like everything last week. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, I didn't
Gotcha.
know. I was just curious. I have nothing against her. Don't dislike her at all. She just can't come on my show and be a fucking asshole to everybody. Sorry.
I'm gonna blame you specifically.
Yeah.
Kid. It's all Grid's fault. Or Ryan's fault. I don't know whose.
Pentuple and I are gonna start doing a podcast one day a week and
Nice.
figuring out the format. When you have me off of live, where I can be edited and all the bad things I say can be filtered out, I think I'm a lot funnier at least.
You say so.
I hope
Yeah,
so.
that's somebody's opinion.
I think so. I get some laughs on your show every week, Grid.
You do actually. You
They're
really do.
like
And you do a
sympathy
lot of-
laughs.
They're not sympathy. Don't listen to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
No, I got more than enough self-confidence. You're not gonna take me down.
Oh, I know. I know exactly what they are.
But yeah, that document I threw together here, it's up to 15 pages now, and it's a little bit at the bottom. Like, once you get to page 12, it kind of starts to lose 13, it starts to lose format and citation, but it's still good.
I was laughing at Landon over here talking about Yahoo News. Ryan's having some problems here, looks like.
Oh shit, Landon, he's talking
Well, it's
shit.
Discord, man.
I don't ever have any problems.
Landon's in
Yeah,
the
I know.
chat playing.
Everybody
NASCAR.
says that until they have problems.
You got it? Are
Is
you
this,
trying
wor-
to?
is this working?
Yeah, it's working.
It's working. We can hear you.
Holy shit! I did it. You guys have no
Right?
idea. I'm the champion.
Right? You tell
Yeah,
them.
there you
You
go.
tell them. You tell
You
them.
know what? Because of you, I'm gonna light up a J just because of your championship win right now.
I mean, this is an unbelievable W for me. You have no idea. For some reason, all the people in your voice chats disappeared. So I was just playing guess which channel to go in.
Well, that's because this chat is hidden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the
So I
secret
move
spot.
I move y'all in here, you know, and I know that confuses some people, but I have people that'll start trying to jump in and
It's
touch the whole fucking thing, and then people bitch about rooms. It's been a lot of drama about the stupid fucking hidden rooms and shit.
Yeah, you could just use like regular streaming software and not have to deal with that shit.
Or I could never use that terrible software you use ever.
What's up,
Awesome,
Dylan?
awesome, bro.
That shit is terrible.
Hello.
How was it
works.
across the pond?
It's okay. It's okay. There's been a few drones that have crossed the border over into Poland, so people are a little on nerve in the border areas and stuff like that. But weather's fine. It's getting cold quick, so I got to get ready to start dressing warm. I got my beard all, grown out, so I'm ready for it.
The beer does help. We'll give it like another 3-4 minutes here.
So we're down. Are we down? How many people today, Gibbs?
What? We're down what? I replaced one.
Oh, you replaced. You already got a replacement.
I got a replacement for Fabian. I don't know if I have enough time to replacement for Soy.
So
But Gibbs, I'm scared.
No, you got.
Seriously?
I'm a liberal. I'm alone, surrounded by so many intelligent conservatives. I'm gonna be destroyed, Gibbs. You need to protect me.
I'm technically a liberal, but like 20 years ago.
You got an American flag behind
Technically a
you. You
liberal.
can't be a liberal and love America. That's not
what-
allowed.
There was a time when the two things were
Technically a
one.
liberal. All right, I gotta port this over here. Stand by.
Does anybody know how to port this onto
What?
StreamYards without creating an infinite regression of
What you
videos?
do- Yeah. So what you do
Yeah.
is you move your Discord over to you open another Discord so you have like text and stuff, but then you make this one full screen and then you share the screen with volume.
Yeah, I'm doing that. The problem is I get like the infinite panel of videos where it's me in panel, all the way back to infinity.
Shouldn't be doing that. I don't know what you're doing wrong.
Everything. I'm doing everything
I don't know.
wrong.
What are you using?
StreamYard.
Streamers
no,
should be
it's
really
not-
easy.
So I don't use StreamYard because it's
I
dog
use
shit.
Streamlabs. I don't use
Dude,
StreamYard.
I'm so boomered out. You have no idea. I'm the champion of boomers.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we got like 2 righties, we got 2 centers, and then we have 2 libs. The only thing I don't have is a lefty, super lefty.
I can't believe. Why did Soy bail?
He had warned me ahead of time that he had some stuff going on, like I guess.
Oh, right.
today.
Yeah, he was like flying from somewhere or something.
Which is sad because he and I have been
If
arguing.
it makes you
about
feel
this
better,
again.
Gibbs, I am a Bernie bro still, so you can count me as that.
Hey, there we go. We'll have 1 lefty on the right, 1 lefty on the,
Bro.
or one center left, one further left. There we go.
Bernie bro.
I was
the
a
last
Bernie bro in
one.
2016.
How do you feel about being betrayed by the party on Bernie?
You know, I've hardened myself on the mountaintop, and I've returned as one of his most dedicated warriors. My feet are pained, blistered, but I've returned.
All right.
All right, well, let's get going. Wick's 8 minutes late. We get going here.
Wick's gonna be late.
Yeah, he'll be finished. He's finishing his show.
Let me get this set up so my audience can see and hear you guys.
I think I fixed it. I think I unboomered myself. This is
Perfect.
unprecedented.
I'm so proud of you.
Congratulations.
Oh,
You have no idea what a big moment this is for me. This is huge.
I understand.
Wait, you got done figured it out.
Wrong button.
All right, I'll give you like
Yeah.
another 1 minute here, and then we'll go.
All right. Somebody in my chat tell me if you've got audio, because it'll be really embarrassing if you don't.
No.
It's
I
been one
hope
day.
you're.
All right.
I hope he ramps up his fucking head here because he's about to get beat. Keep the blood and brains in. Oh, by the way, SpongeBob.
Oh yeah, let's just kick it off, and Wick will get here in a second. He just jumped right in. He said he's going to be coming in hot. All right, so we're here today, guys. Welcome to another episode of Give Me a Break. We're going to be talking about leftist policy, rhetoric, and the murders of Irina Zaratuska, I'm sure I butchered her name, and Charlie Kirk. We're going to see what we all think and who's the cause. Just 4 hours ago, Jasmine Crockett said that the shooter of Charlie Kirk was MAGA inspired. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of stuff. Should people be punished for it? Should people be able to say what they want? Is the policy and the rhetoric on the left causing death, or is that maybe that bullshit? We're going to find out now. Let's start off with Tyler.
Well, if we're going into that, the punishment part as well, I guess I'll start with that because I don't have it in the notes. No individual's free speech should not be punished, but you need to also follow the FCC rules if you're on a main network or a cable network, not to spread hoaxes, not to say anything bigoted, not to swear, not to show boobs. All these things are First Amendment protected, as we've seen through Supreme Court cases. It's just you're not allowed into this small club of official channels on TV. If you want to do them, you have to do what HBO did, and they did just fine. They took Bill Maher, who was somebody that was kicked off the air for saying something offensive to Americans, and then they took him onto HBO. He's been there ever since. So I don't think individuals should be punished, but I mean, you can go after networks for their licensing. Right now, Fox News is in a lawsuit that's being appealed because it was thrown out by the Biden administration, being sued for their opinions on, or their statements on Dominion voting. I have no problem. I like the FCC. I like regulation. I'm not going to throw my hands up and say, oh my God, when it's used against the side that I vote for, and then not against the side I don't vote for. It's absolutely fine. That being said, what we see is a woman stabbed on a bus as a result of soft on crime policies that are being pushed by a party. We have 20 years of the Democratic Party, when I was still part of it, including playing down some of the most violent groups and saying it's really Americans that are the most bigoted, racist, violent, and those are the ones we need to worry about. Starting with Islamophobia, the Obama administration wouldn't even say the word radical Islamic terror. They completely got it out of their vocabulary. They lied about several instances of Islamic violence, saying one of them was just a gay man who was on Grindr repressing his gayness and things of that nature. Benghazi, the only thing to come out of Benghazi that actually had any merit was that the administration blamed it on a video, and it ended up not being that video, and said that the attackers joined a riot or a riot outside the embassy that didn't actually exist. That's about all we got out of Benghazi that was worth a shit. So I kind of want to go through all these things and talk about them. At the end of the day, if talking about black violent crime rates and illegal immigrants eating cat and dogs is dehumanizing racism, if mentioning Islamic extremism leads to violence against moderate Muslims, and if pointing out trans people or gender theory generally isn't real, is actually killing people and causing a genocide against them, then I don't know how we can call a group fascist and not expect some kind of repercussions for that in the same line of thought. I think personally it's stochastic terrorism. It's an intentional dehumanizing tactic to make it palatable for one crazy person to see this as an easy way to get rid of somebody that morally they should.
Hi, thank you so much, Mr. Malawi.
Hey, Gibbs, thanks for having me on. So we've got a kind of a wide-ranging topics, and Tyler covered a bunch of bases, so I'm not going to try to rehash all the stuff he talked about. But just to make a few points that I think should be obvious, but maybe aren't. Greg Lukianoff, who's the head of the organization FIRE, which is the best free speech advocacy group in the country, the title of his Substack is The Eternally Radical Idea. And the reason he calls it that is because no party that's in power likes free speech. The party that's in power always is opposed to free speech because they're always trying to do something, and free speech is an obstacle to power, universally. The Trump administration has not been good on free speech. They've been far from good on free speech. And, I like my government limited. I like my government uninvolved in free speech, and it would fill me with joy if the FCC was abolished. I don't know what the purpose of it is at this point, given that the primary purpose of it originally, at least in its current formation, is to regulate cable TV and primary channels that nobody watches. It's regulating an outdated technology because the whole purpose originally was that there was limited bandwidth and televisions only had certain channels, and you were licensing those channels to providers. The technology's just moved on. The agency doesn't really serve its original purpose and should be trimmed down to that purpose so that this tool isn't lying around for the next administration to use. Regarding violence, I think it's really important to start any conversation about violence with the person doing the violence, because they're generally speaking a crazy person. That's almost by definition. And they're a crazy person, and it's their fault, even if they heard something that made them want to do it. When righties say stuff that inspires shooters, when lefties say stuff that inspires shooters, that inspiration is still really far removed. They heard a speech they didn't like, but they're crazy. And they did it because they're crazy. And we should remember that. That is the most important factor. That said, I put up a poll on my X account, and I just asked, if you believed, and they can fill in the meaning however you want, if you believed that the government was run by evil fascists, would that morally justify political violence? And 75% of people who responded said yes. And I think that makes sense, because if you believe the government was run by evil fascists, was run by evil Nazis, was run by, evil communists, violent revolution, we're Americans, that would be the proper moral response. So I think we do need to take the temperature down a little bit. We need to leave ourselves some rhetorical room. If you call someone a label that justifies actual revolution, if taken as true, you have to speak with your chest a little bit and realize that you are calling for revolution. That is something that I don't think people are. I think we can criticize each other within the bounds set by that pretty easily. And I don't want to monopolize the time, but just as a final comment, I really do hope that we can find some way to be a little calmer in the way we're talking about this stuff. Like people like Destiny, who have been going on and Piers Morgan drawing a lot of attention to themselves. I get it. He got a lot of clicks doing it. He's on Fox News now. It's really great for business. It's really terrible for America. It's selfish, it's stupid, it's irresponsible. He has the right to do it. You can hold two ideas in your head. I would go to court to defend him and his right to do it if he asked me to, but he's a piece of shit for doing it. And you can think those two things at the same time.
All right, thank you so much. Abbers.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm of very much so the same opinion on when it comes to political violence. Like, there's absolutely no reason for it unless you're a crazy person that legitimately thinks the other people on the other side are fascists and horrible, crazy racists that are going to put everyone in concentration camps. And so using that type of language and the type of language that's come from sometimes the mainstream media on the left, calling the other side Nazis and fascists and likening them to people who have murdered millions of people, has now culminated in a crazy person literally stating he killed a father in front of his children because he just couldn't take his hate anymore. And that's the point it's come to. So it's a time to bring the temperature incredibly down, but you can't have people like Destiny going on and saying all of these horrible, crazy, awful things and then being ultimately rewarded for it with the views and the clicks and the likes, right? Because it's going to ultimately inspire more people to think that that's cool, to do the sensationalism. And I think that's why the rhetoric's gotten so bad. We have created a sensationalist society by upping the ante on what we say to get more clicks and more likes and more views. And that's a problem we see on both sides. That the words just get more and more edgy and more provocative, and we start off saying that things are harmful and turn it into equating words to violence. So that needs to stop on both sides, and I think it takes people saying that publicly in order to bring the temperature down. As far as Irina Zarutska goes, there's no reason, in the words of that man's mother, there's no reason he should have been on the streets. There's no reason, whether that means he should have been locked away in jail or whether that means he should have been in an institution getting help for the schizophrenia. She specifically was quoted saying there's absolutely no reason he was on the streets, and yet he was released with a promise to appear, a written promise to appear, so that he could kill somebody on the way home from work. So it's disgraceful and it stinks, and we should look into how we can prevent that from happening in the future. Whether that's making sure that people that have a very long rap sheet, 13, 14 arrests, are, put away for a little bit longer. If we need to forcibly institutionalize people that are not taking medications that they need to be taking, whatever the case may be.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Burns.
Sure. So I think in the vast majority of instances, obviously, political violence is not allowed. It should be seen as a last resort for defending, the constitutional republic, i.e. there is some essential threat to our republic. Somebody is going to suspend elections indefinitely. Somebody is going to suspend the Constitution and all articles within it. If somebody was to say that, I would say that'd be pretty dangerous. And I say we can have that position while also still acknowledging that we shouldn't kill the canary in the coal mine. For example, today, during this week on Fox, Brian Kilmeade went out there and he suggested that homeless people should be euthanized with a Nazi-esque policy, which he then later apologized for. He said it was wrong. We shouldn't euthanize the mentally unwell and homeless. That's not good. I think we need to be able to call something what it is, while also being careful with our words. That it has to get to something like that for you to say something like, because what he did say was a Nazi-style policy to execute the mentally unwell and homeless. And he got a 30-second apology, and there was no FCC anything. There was no statement from Brent Carr. There was no statement from the FCC. There was no statement about, no problem whatsoever. But when we talk about Jimmy Kimmel and what he said in reference to the shooter, we're going to need him to donate to Turning Point USA. We're going to need him to issue a public apology. Donald Trump just wants him off the air, period. And it's part of a campaign that he wants to suppress his liberal critics on TV. He said very clearly after he fell, after Stephen Colbert fell, he wants Seth Meyers next. He wants the other Jimmy next. We had Brendan Carr talking about The View next. And so if we're going to have the FCC, the problem is one political party abusing it while they're in a position of power. So you either need to reel in the FCC to make it so this type of power isn't possible, or abolish it altogether and start from the ground up, acknowledging that the media landscape has completely changed from what it was when you, like our friend Ryan said, when it was a certain amount of restricted bandwidth. And Donald Trump is a spiteful man, and he is openly talking about, look, if you mostly cover us critically, we're going to go after your broadcasting license. So when we reform it, though, I'm really scared that Trump could be the person to reform it, because if he does reform it, it could just be, okay, let's see if we can do this to podcasters next, okay? Let's see if we can do this to David Pakman. Let's see if we can do this X, Y, and Z. So whatever replaces the FCC has to be something that restricts the power of the president in abusing that institution, be they Democrat, be they Republican, no matter who they are. Also, if anybody's calling for a civil war, you're a loser. Everybody thinks that it's not going to be their house that burns, it's not going to be their family that grieves, it's going to be somebody else. But the people who are going to be avoiding that are going to be the wealthiest bad actors who incite this type of violence in the first place. And the face of warfare has changed fundamentally. If you think that your AR-15 in the middle of the backwoods is going to be enough to deal with drone pilots and AI systems that are in rapid development right now, you need to fully understand like the consequences of fully accepting political violence and what that means for your community, which is why it's a last resort, which is why when the founding fathers engaged in the revolution, they took that consideration seriously and not just something for clicks, which a lot of broadcasters have used it for.
All right, thank you so much. Grid.
Yeah, I want to. Thanks for the invite. I'm the late edition. I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare for this. I'm just going to kind of go off the cuff. Bear with me. So I'm going to start with the arena slaying. I agree with Abers that the person should never have been on the street. I think that we've gotten really a little lax in the way that we handle our mental health policies, procedures in this country, and worse is what we've been finding out about the judge in the case and how, or the magistrate, whatever, and how actually sending people rather than sending them to jail where they should have gone, she was sending them to a treatment clinic that she was part owner in, and then that person never actually had to show up, and he understood that he never had to show up, and he was walking around on the street. It's criminal. That is actually criminal. I think that there should be something done about that. I don't know where that gets us in speech-wise, other than somebody should have said something, I guess. I don't know. As far as the, what's been going on with the conflation and the basically the inferno that's been set off by Charlie Kirk's assassination. What I feel like we're seeing is the result of an ever sliding scale of I don't give a fuck, because people will literally sit there and say the most deranged things, and people will be like, that's just that guy, he's just that way, and nobody speaks up, or very few people speak up. And when those people speak up, they're shouted down. They're called boomer. Shut the fuck up, boomer. You just don't get it. You don't get it, boomer. Whatever. I don't care. But at the end of this road, yes, the FCC is a terrible organization. It has been for decades. We don't use shortwave radios anymore. It's a $10 license that I don't know why that it even exists in the format that it does, along with the FAA and several other three-letter agencies that have no real business in civilian or commercial use, other than you can make an argument for the aviation industry. But getting back to because again I didn't prepare. I'm just kind of off the cuff here. Getting back to the free speech aspect of this, I absolutely support free speech. I think anybody should be able to say any damn thing they want to. Words have some power, but they have the power that you give them. It's fine. But again, we have these deranged people We have people like Destiny who are going out and are just absolutely unhinged. We have people on the right who are also just as unhinged, right? Like this is not exclusive to one side or the other. And anybody that acts like it is I mean, ignorant. I mean, I can't think of a better word. So I think this is going to be pretty spirited. I hope everybody can.
I have it in my notes.
Remain calm.
I don't have the name of it.
I actually live about a mile from a Civil War battlefield, so I get to see every day as I drive by the cannons, the caissons. Every day, I have a memory of walking that as a school kid, reading about it, finding the musket balls. So it's a little bit, the idea of Civil War, to me, is very real. I understand it. I don't think a lot of people do. That's it. Got it.
All right. Thank you so much. Quick.
Hi. So I'm going to try to be succinct. That is a struggle that I have, but I will try anyway. Political violence, it's not a right problem, it's not a left problem, it's a problem, period. I think that one of the problems that we have in society today is we are in a cycle of vengeance. Okay? The other side did it to us, and now we have to do it to them. Oh, they got our guy, now we have to get their guy. And instead of looking at and waiting for all the information to come out, we play a game every time there's a violent event. And this game is, how can we paint it so it reflects poorly on the other side and absolves our side of all wrongdoing? And instead of figuring out how we're going to fix the problem or anything like that, or what actually happened, right? It's a game. We weaponize it against our political opponents. We need to stop doing it. That is horrific. It is abomination. Let's stop now. That's on political violence. On to the free speech. So, I'm going to quote from an organization. I think Ryan referenced them. And it's one of my favorite organizations. It's the FIRE, Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. And this is from their lawyer guy, their legal director. Okay, and he said this 4 months ago on Mehdi Hassan's podcast. He says this. He says, in my career, I have never seen this scope, this scale, and this severity of what we've seen in the last 3 months. And he referenced the attacks on free speech of immigrants who had student visas, who were at colleges, who had their student visas revoked and were detained for weeks before they were able to win their case and get out because they were critical of Israel. Right? We have seen him use the FCC to extort his opponents into settling with lawsuits that Trump himself has brought against individuals. And Paramount is a great example of this. So Paramount had a merger pending, or an acquisition or a merger, multi-million-dollar thing that they wanted to do, and they were awaiting FCC approval. Trump was suing them. So the FCC, under Carr, comes in and says, this merger, you're under a lawsuit that's pending right now, buddy. I don't know if we can approve this merger until this lawsuit's dealt with. That could take a long time. It'd probably be easier just to settle and to give Trump what he wants, huh? And this is a pattern of behavior that we've seen Carr. Again, the FCC did it again today, or yesterday, with Jimmy Kimmel. The FCC went on Benny Johnson's podcast and extorted ABC and its affiliates and said, basically, that's a nice broadcasting license you have there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it because of your Kimmel problem. Luckily, people like Barry Weiss at the Free Press and other principled conservatives have noted and spoken out against this. Less than I'd like. But we are in a free speech crisis in America, and that is a problem. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I mean, since free speech seems to be a big thing, we'll kind of move towards the other topics a little bit after this. But let's go into this a little bit. What do we think about misinformation and how it should be handled. Because I remember during COVID, there was a lot of crackdowns on information. I know that we're having kind of a reverse situation with the Charlie Kirk thing. You know, we have people saying, oh, these people should be banned for misinformation, saying he's MAGA, you know, et cetera, et cetera. When back in the day, it was the left saying it was about COVID stuff. Do we have a problem when we crack down on misinformation? And what are we calling misinformation?
I mean, I think we've seen countless attempts by the government to crack down on misinformation. None of them have been remotely okay under the First Amendment or the broader value of free speech in society. Like, I remember, it's funny because Wick is right that Trump's been terrible on free speech, and we should talk about that. But Biden was also terrible on free speech, you know, and Gibbs, what you're describing when it was litigated, I was just looking at it before this call started. There was a 77-page recitation of facts in a district court about all the different ways that the Biden administration pressured social media to take down misinformation, which the judge in that case called the most massive attack on free speech in history. So the point I'm making is not to get into who's worse, Trump or Biden. I actually think the partisanship is the brain rot. You try to talk to somebody about these issues, and the first thing they say is, isn't your guy worse? Instead of, let's address the problem. The problem is that we have, for decades, empowered the executive branch with increasing control over our lives through agencies like the FCC. And when you give the executive unlimited power, eventually someone will assume that office you don't like, and they will use that power for something you don't like. The only solution is to limit the scope of executive power. And if the Obama administration into Trump 1, into Biden, into Trump 2 is not the best argument for limiting executive power that you can think of, I don't know what would convince you. The data is in. It's way past time.
I don't disagree about limiting executive power, limiting the executive orders and all these other things. But I do want to ask you that 76-page report in the district court, is that the one that actually went to the Supreme Court? Are you talking about the same case?
Yes.
Okay. The Supreme Court ruled that Biden had done nothing wrong in a 6-3 decision.
No, it didn't. It ruled that they lacked standing.
Yes, exactly. And why did they lack standing? Hold on. Why did they lack standing?
Because those parties had not been injured.
Okay. Those parties had not been injured.
The state,
Why?
yeah.
Because the standards that were set, right? Like the what's it called? The TOS that they were enforcing were in place before Biden came into office. Biden wasn't pressuring them to do anything new or different. They lacked standing because these rules that the social media companies had into place were already in place. Biden didn't put them there. But I will grant you that what Biden did in jawboning, that's not good. That was anti-free speech, and he should be held to account for that. But we can't pretend, just real quick, and I'll be done, I promise. We can't pretend that Biden was as bad as Trump too on this, because again, the people whose jobs this is, the lawyers, the legal team of the fire, right? Even in the first 3 months of his presidency, we're saying that this is the scope and the scale of it were just so severe.
Tyler,
so
do you mind if I just quickly respond, then I'll pass it to you just because he was talking to me. First of all, the thing I landed on was the brain rot is into constant comparisons rather than addressing the problem, followed by immediately a comparison, which is what always happens. Second of all, be careful with that argument, Wick, because yes, the Supreme Court dismissed that case on a technical ground, like standing. But guess what's going to happen with the Kimmel case? It's going to get dismissed or be found non-actionable on a technical ground because ABC doesn't want to fight this. So ABC probably isn't going to court. They'd rather he's gone. And if Jimmy sues, there's going to be a confounding intervening factor, which is his employer wanted to fire him. So I don't think this case is actionable either. I think both these cases get dismissed for technical grounds.
ABC should be condemned for caving in. They should be condemned.
No, they wanted to fire him. Those shows lose so much money. They were delighted for the excuse to fire him.
That's what I was gonna say.
Guaranteed.
Those shows all lose money. It's the biggest secret in Hollywood. These things have been losing money for years. That's why Colbert got fired. They're loss leaders. They're the Costco chicken. They promote their industry, but they don't actually make money on them. And the promotion doesn't work anymore because no one likes the fucking shows. They were delight. Sorry, Tyler, I did a thing I swore I wouldn't do.
You're mind reading.
You're good. I was just gonna
You're
ask.
mind reading. There's no like you're mind reading. You're assuming something that hasn't been. The only facts we know is that the FCC publicly, right, on Benny Johnson's channel, pressured ABC to do this. So it might be that they wanted to fire him anyway, but we'll never know because the FCC put their thumb on the scale.
Is there any proof that the FCC actually did anything policy-wise? They actually filed anything? That they actually ever contacted ABC? Or more importantly, the two groups. There's two broadcasting groups that make up for 40% of the channels that Jimmy Kimmel was on. They're the ones that tried to cancel their contracts and not air Jimmy Kimmel because they found his statements disgusting. So is there any proof that the FCC, they did that Wednesday, the same day the podcast aired?
Okay, after the podcast aired. Because I read that Sinclair report. And they referenced the words that the FCC chair used in that podcast. So
but
unless
did the
they travel back
FCC
in
actually
time, right?
do anything? Did they actually did they contact anybody? Did they actually ask, like with Biden, did they
you don't
contact
need to have any filings for it to be extortion.
you made a comparison. You said one was worse. I see one not actually doing anything technical, never contacting anybody, just making a vague
You're
statement
assigning
on a
malice
podcast.
to the FCC where they just simply issued a warning based on current policy.
Whereas the other side was not only just using the FCC rules that have been in place for 90 years to police specifically free speech on these specific networks. Jimmy Kimmel isn't being gone after for his speech. No charges are filed against him. He can repeat his statements every day for the rest of his life, and he's never going to get in trouble. He just doesn't get a megaphone handed to him anymore. He lost the right to have that megaphone. He's not entitled
He lost
to
it
a
because the
have a
government
right to it.
pressured a
And-
private company to make him lose it.
No, I don't see any proof of that pressure besides a vague statement on a podcast.
I think you're assigning
I
malice.
think if I had
Hold on, I got
news
one
for-
more. Hold on, you guys just talked for a ton. Let me just finish this last point here. So the FCC or free speech has its limits. We all agree, no violence and things like that. But another limit of free speech is when it infringes on other equally important rights, like the freedom of association. If you're not allowed to fire somebody for saying speech that you don't like as a private company, then free speech is now overruling other rights, especially ones in the same exact amendment with the same exact level of importance. Freedom of association, if it gets trampled over, then free speech becomes a bit tyrannical.
But this isn't freedom of association because the government pressured publicly a private company to do it. They didn't make it of their own free will.
What are you
They made-
interpreting as
they
pressure?
knew, and I'm going to quote here, right?
Yes, please.
They knew,
Please do.
and they made their decision based on sources from the Rolling Stone, right, as reported, that there was a looming threat of Trump retaliation. They knew that if they did not make this decision, that there would be retaliatory strikes by
So
the
you don't have any proof. You have hearsay from the people who need to have a reason for what they did.
We can
You
listen
know
to
what
Trump.
proof does exist?
That's awesome.
But
There's
that's
proof
awesome.
that
That's what
exists that
does
shows that in
It's
2015,
the
Jimmy
best
Kimmel was
evidence ever,
pulling in
my man.
2.2 million viewers, and now in 2025, he only pulls in 1 million viewers. That's losing half of your viewership over a decade. They were ready to pull that plug so fast. They're like,
Oh my
get
God, I've never
us
seen
out of
someone
here.
Doesn't that make this more pathetic on Trump's part if they were ready to collapse? I mean, if you're Donald Trump and this show has terrible ratings, it's going down the tube. I don't find Jimmy funny, okay? The best part of it is that he's got a stout Mexican sidekick, and I find that kind of
We can
humorous.
all
But
agree
besides
on that.
there's nothing else that is
the-
funny
the-
about Jimmy Kimmel. But if Donald Trump is going out there and saying he's literally listing off the TV shows he wants taken off the air. That's what Donald Trump's doing. Let's not pretend there isn't a public pressure campaign if he's literally listing them name by name, person by person, and adding the organizations on through social saying, ABC, your job's next. NBC, take them off. That is a direct pressure campaign. And Donald Trump isn't it like he's a fool when it comes to some things, but when it comes to stuff like this, media stuff, he's pretty smart. You attack these shows when they're at their weakest. If Trump fucks up really bad in a year, more than he has already, and let's say that Trump, like anti-Trump rhetoric gets more and more popular, as tends to happen near midterms, as tends to happen, definitely going into second terms of some presidencies. Trump's a decisive figure. shows like this could pick up again. And these networks could be making a determination. Look, Trump's president tends to be that being against the administration gets more popular as it goes on. Let's sit on this investment for some time. Let's cut the band. Let's cut some of the funding to X, Y, and Z. Let's make it work. Maybe that was their decision. It's not the president's job to determine business decisions for these corporations. So let's not cut him some slack and talk about the ratings. You created Jimmy the Martyr. You could have made Jimmy just look like a moron off the Charlie Kirk stuff. Trump couldn't keep his fat mouth shut.
I want to add one thing. Hold on. I just want to add one thing before y'all go. Kimmel and The View are actually different. Well, one, I know different time slots, but they're actually different from the other late night shows in that they actually do well on the after show. They do well on what are they called? The little DVRs, and they do really well on their clips compared to the other shows. Like that, they had a massive millions amount of viewers on those. So it is slightly different compared to like Colbert. I think it's important to note.
Okay.
And who did Carr announce was the next prequel they were looking at going after immediately after all this? It was The View.
Yeah,
Before we lean any harder in partisanship, just to say it and in the vain hope that it works for the first time in the history of politics, the brain rot is the argument about who's worse, because we have a panel here and we all agree it's bad. And instead of actually talking about that, yes, I think everyone has
raise
agreed.
your hand if you think it's bad that Jimmy Kimmel got fired because of FCC pressure.
No, can we rephrase it?
No.
Do we think it's bad for the government to weigh in on free speech issues with a private corporation?
Yes.
Okay,
Fair
but
question, I
the
agree with.
contention, Ryan, is that what happened here? So let me ask, do you think that's what happened in this case, panel? Raise your hand.
The government, the government certainly weighed in.
That's where the difference is. That's where the contention is.
But I mean, we can endlessly litigate this. I mean, like you're going to read a quote, and then I'm going to read like Zuckerberg's letter about all the pressure that Facebook received, and then we know
agree it's
bad. You know, so
No, but there wasn't an acknowledgement that
I have
what's
a solution.
happening now.
I have a solution.
That's what I think Wick's angry about.
Well, this is an easy solution. Instead of focusing on this one little thing, I think this is easier. Everybody here seems to want to agree that partisanship is bad or has some sympathy to that notion. However, I have said before that I think that it's hard to stomach that when you think, oh, one side is getting away with murder, and then when I equally play their game to the same level, suddenly I'm the bad guy. Do we agree that is what's happening, or do we have to take contention with that?
I think that's sort of what's happening. We see the FCC has a long history of going after all sorts of licenses for the last 30 years to implement racial quotas and essentially capture the culture. They were kicking...
And it doesn't just be the FCC,
Say
to
that
be
about
clear.
any federal agency.
And
Any
then
federal
Obama-
agency does what the president directs them to do. If the president says to the FBI, I really need you to investigate small businesses that are not following whatever stupid ass rule, and the FBI goes and does it, that's pressure. And you can say that it's wrong, but it's within their purview.
Yeah, I don't think...
Literally every president does it, and we can't. So I don't understand why we're trying to play, well, Democrat bad,
I still
Republican
don't see
bad.
anything
It's
as
all
bad.
bad.
Trump
Can we
or
focus on this?
Biden
Get rid of the
anything as
three-letter
bad
agencies,
as what
but Ryan
Obama
was
did to James
right.
Rosen. James
I'm
Rosen
talking about
was
Trump
one of
because he's the president of the
worst-
United States.
Ryan-
Hold on. Who's
Ryan
president
was
right now? Remind
right.
me. Is it Obama?
James
Is it
Rosen
Biden?
was
Ryan
the
Are they
worst
in
infringement on
any
the First
position of
Amendment.
government power?
Ryan was correct in that when we are more concerned with the divide than the problem itself.
I'm talking about the
Ryan
problem
was
that we
right
can
about
fix
that.
right now,
I
that we have to
understand,
address
Whit,
right now,
you
because
can
the
keep
president right
repeating it
now
over
is
and
doing
over.
the thing
It's
right
not
now.
gonna change
And we can
my
talk about what
opinion.
What are
Biden
you
did
gonna
4
do to
years
fix
ago,
that?
and what Obama did.
Wick,
16 years ago, but
the problem with it is, and this is, I guess I feel this because I have so many conversations that go in exactly this direction. I go on a show, and I am happy to criticize Trump. I think he did something bad. I'm delighted to criticize him. I have absolutely no qualms about doing it, no loyalty in that regard. Like, I didn't vote for him. It's totally fine. I am delighted to criticize him. But that's always done in the context of, so then you'll join my political project, right? So what I'm trying to do is reframe the conversation around, there probably is a coalition of people that's big enough, that has enough votes, that makes a difference, who would be swayed by these free speech concerns. But if we phrase it as a partisan capture, then I'm gonna end up arguing against you because I'm not part of your political project. So, and I don't want to be part of your political project. So that turns into a different conversation, and that's the brain rot. If everything turns into this one conversation every time.
The frustration I have, is I see this guy stabbing the shit out of someone, just stabbing them in the neck over and over and over again. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy's stabbing someone in the neck. And you turn to me and you're like, well, 4 years ago, I saw something similar, right?
No.
I don't know if we can talk about this one right now.
Vote for my next step.
What we're saying is 4 years ago,
hold
your
on.
party made
I'm
that
not
legal.
trying to, hold on, please let me finish. I'm not trying to play this partisan game where we say, what about, right? What about this? What about that? I'm saying that what the FCC is doing right now, right this second, is a violation of our First Amendment. It is a threat to our free speech, and we need to come together to oppose it right now. I don't care what happened 4 years ago. I don't care what happened 16 years ago. I don't care about how what happened 20 years ago. Right now, we're in a threat.
Yeah, I know the context makes it look terrible. I
right
get it. That's why you want to drop the context. But at the end of the day, the FCC has been up for 90 years doing this exact same thing. This is their role. For Ryan, to your introduction, when I sent you here, the FCC has been something the GOP is trying to get rid of for like 50 years. Reagan was the one that went hard against trying to deregulate the FCC. Who would have thought that Republicans actually embracing and using the FCC as it's been used against them would be the accelerationist thing to actually get rid of it? Now we hear everybody on both sides saying the FCC is bad.
Can I ask you a question? Can you name a time where the FCC has been used in this manner as the Trump administration is, where he's naming, like he's out there, he's naming all the shows that he doesn't like, that he wants to see off the air, and then Brandon Carr slowly is, talking about X show, that show, this show, the shows that he's most upset with?
Their rhetoric in particular is extremely irresponsible and should be kept behind doors as every other administration.
Also, their actions. Well, he's not talking about the rhetoric.
He's
talking about the
action. They just said
They're going after specific licenses of
Do you
specific...
have any evidence that they actually filed anything, spoke to ABC, or spoke to any of these broadcasters?
Here's what Mr. Carr said, the head of the FCC. He said, and I'm quoting here, frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, we can do this the easy way or the hard way.
I watched the whole interview.
Right?
I'm well aware it's 12 minutes
These
long.
companies can find ways to change conduct and take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead.
But did they
What
actually
do you
take
think he
any
meant by
action?
that?
Did they take, what actions did they take, as you said?
They
You said
didn't
they're taking
have
action.
to because ABC caved.
They made a statement. No, ABC caved to 2 distribution networks that both said that the comments Kimmel made were
What's wrong with that statement, though? You can either do this or you face the consequences. That's literally our entire world.
That's life in general.
Hold on.
This is why
Ryan should know this.
No, this is why I brought up the Biden stuff, because this is exactly what I was complaining about during the Biden administration, and I think you do need to take the principled stance that I'm not fine with it in any of these instances. Like since we're doing quotes, like,
well,
when Zuckerberg wrote his letter to Congress, he wrote, in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree.
What threats did they make?
Well, allegedly they screamed and cussed. But let me reframe this.
Wait, there's 77 pages of it in the court. I can read it if you want, but it's
no, I don't need to read
77 pages long.
Give me an example of a threat.
They would send emails that you need to do this. There were urgency. I will grant you their language was not as extreme as Carr's language.
They didn't. So just to be clear,
but they didn't. And
right
Carr
now,
didn't do anything either.
You can't give me a specific threat that Biden's administration
Carr didn't make a
made
specific threat. He didn't say, I'm going to take you off the air. He said there may be more work to do if you don't do something about this.
So wait,
doing something about this could have been put in
you don't see any parallel here. You don't think these seem similar to you? You don't think these seem at all similar? You don't see a similarity?
I don't know, because you go give me an example.
Give me an
example.
Wait. It's a 77-page recitation of hundreds of instances of the federal government
sending. Easy to give me one example.
Okay,
out of those
then
77
I will download it and we can read it if that's going to be helpful to you.
I mean,
but it's a useless point. The point the basic point I'm making is that this is bad behavior that we should be criticizing, but you don't seem to be willing to grant the fact that this was done by previous administrations.
Wait, before you answer it.
Yeah, dude, I'm just saying it's all in my notes.
But it's worse when Trump does it because he's doing it in a more direct.
Everyone's calling Wake Out right now.
Violating.
Trump did it.
Hold on. I want to ask this question because I think we could use exactly what Ryan did give us right here, though. Right? Ryan said they pressured Zuckerberg to even take down things that were comedic and satire in nature. That sounds like something that Jimmy Kimmel would have done, right? Hypothetically, he would have made satire and comedy jokes, and it was pressure to take it down. Seems almost a direct equivalent. Okay, maybe they're based on size. Joe at home making his meme group is probably not the same size as Kimmel. I have a question though, and that's in regards to misinformation, because that was the bludgeon that was used by the Biden administration, and it seemed like it was cheered on, right? And it would seem like it was cheered on to get rid of COVID misinformation. Why wouldn't it be you equally be cheering on whenever Jasmine Crockett is saying today on television in Congress that the shooter was a MAGA Republican? Would you agree that that is also misinformation and should be punished equally or silenced?
What is she saying? Can you tell me? I'm not sure what Crockett's saying here.
I mean, she's claiming that the grandmother it said that he's a MAGA Republican, thus the kid is a MAGA Republican, and it was Republican on Republican violence.
She's probably wrong based on the evidence.
She should.
Well, so she shouldn't be punished, but that's misinformation, right? So how is that different than a COVID misinformation?
Congress has this different clause of misinformation where they're exploring political ideas that we have to. It's kind of like how teachers kind of have this exemption from with tenure where they can explore ideas for an academic purpose. Congress has a similar one for a political purpose where they can explore these ideas and say things that are technically false in their exploration and debate. So I don't want that chilled.
Interesting. Do y'all all agree with that? Because it seems like you would argue that the leadership, because I hear it right now, I'm hearing y'all want Trump and Republican leaders on the left want Trump and Republican leadership to tamp conversation down. And then on the left, I guess you're center, but like I'm hearing, you don't want this like tamped down in Congress. However, people are saying, oh, well, Maxine Waters caused BLM riots to be worse. We have examples of other people during this time. You can point to Republicans like Trump saying these things like that are outrageous. And it's like, okay, well, do we want them to be able to explore these things and say misinformation, or do we want this toned down? Because it doesn't seem like we can have both.
I mean, you have two ideas in your head at the same time. I want them to have the right and capacity legally to say crazy shit, and I would like to find a way as a society to stop rewarding them for it, right? Like, there's a difference between the legal proposition, what does the First Amendment require, and the moral proposition. Like this happened with Trump's flag burning, where I kept telling people, yes, you have the right to burn your own flag. You absolutely do. You shouldn't do it, though, because it makes you a piece of shit. Morals and legality are different. And that's okay. And I think that what we need to do is start making the moral claim more loudly, where it's like, okay, yes, you have the right to do this, but we are not going to fall for your attention getting shit anymore, and we're going to vote with our feet. I don't know how to organize that, but if any of you more internet savvy people do, hit me up. I'd be delighted to help.
One thing on what you were talking about, Gibbs, is that I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, but I remember having multiple friends of mine and acquaintances get banned off of Facebook and Twitter and everything else for things that they said back during the unpleasantness known as COVID, for misinformation. And yet now, that's not misinformation. They were right the whole time. Like it wasn't, most of them were. And so what do you think about that, Wick? Where are you at on that one? Are you okay with that? You're okay with those people having been banned, their accounts deleted?
Okay, you would be shocked to know that throughout my whole streaming career, I have been 100% against censorship from the government, whether it comes from the left or the right. I have screamed at leftists. In fact, most of my initial streaming time, right, during the 21, 22, was screaming at leftists who were trying to deplatform their enemies. who are trying to deplatform quote-unquote Nazis. I have a long and storied history of being very principled on this topic. My frustration
you're
right
against
now,
the Biden administration doing exactly what you're claiming the Trump administration did.
No, it's not to the same level. It's a mistake.
Exact same
the
thing.
same. It is not the same.
It
right?
is exactly
because again, the Biden administration didn't do a lot of this, right? They did a lot of bad things. It's not all good. They tried to make a ministry of truth. I oppose that. Other people oppose that. But at the end of the day, Biden didn't do that. Biden didn't put together a ministry of truth. He did. Stick-canned that, right? He dismantled that. He didn't put that together, right? Because we all stood up and we said, no, that's a bad idea, Mr. President. But to answer your question, right, or to address your point, I should say, look, I would love it. I would love it, love it, love it. If that same energy you had to defend your friends who were getting deplatformed was put to the people who are getting deplatformed now today. Because there are people who are being put on dox lists whose families and friends and coworkers and places of employment are being called because they have not sufficiently mourned Charlie Kirk.
That I agree with him on. Those people, yeah, that whole Charlie Kirk's killers, that's fucking gross.
Well, that's interesting.
Since Wick didn't take the bait, could I take the bait instead?
Yeah,
be the
take
Bernie
the bait.
bro and say, sure, fuck him, actually. Look,
there you go.
My position is if people want to be politically radical, they can be politically radical. If people want to have whatever opinion they want to have, they can have whatever opinion you want to have. But I also think that in certain environments, and we've already had these standards put in place, for example, one of the few areas the FCC can actually screw you up, and this is one area where Jimmy Fallon might be in danger, is if he provably said something he knew was false. If he went out there and said the person who shot Charlie Kirk was actually Ben Shapiro because he wanted to get rid of the guy. If he went out there and said some crazy thing like that, and then we found text messages of him saying, of course I know that's bullshit, but hey, the views are going to be great. That's what ended up screwing over Fox News in the Dominion lawsuit that made them lose $850 million, is we got texts from their broadcasters basically admitting that they didn't want the backlash from viewers. They wanted to keep the high viewers. They want people to go over the Newsmax. They want people to go over the OAN. They wanted to keep them there. And so they said things that made them comfortable, even though it wasn't true. And that contributed to a lot of the misinformation that did end up having a big contribution to what happened on January 6th. And so I think that when we're talking about a health crisis, if we're talking about something that is a national security crisis, there could be certain barriers put in place. For example, states are obviously taking advantage of moments like this to try to get us to kill each other. The Russians are doing that right now. They're making accounts, trying to make us say, oh my gosh, the only option here is civil war, or somebody should do something about X, Y, and Z. They want more assassinations. They want more killings. They want more chaos. And this type of stuff needs to be cracked down upon because it's an actual national security concern, and it's a real thing we need to go after. So if you're an American citizen and you're American and you want to go out there and you want to say whatever, that's fine. But I also don't think that when we're talking about going after somebody for criticizing the president of the United States, which is what Trump's talking about, is a little different than when we're talking about trying to suppress stuff during a health crisis, or, for example, trying to go after a national security threat, or going after somebody who's provably lying because they want to make money off of misinforming the American public. I think these things are different.
Yeah,
so Dylan, you
be talking about the best way to do that is by cracking down on bot farms, right? I don't know the specific legal avenues to do that, but look, I have no problem censoring.
Why not? I'm sorry to interrupt, but why not a requirement to make these companies have to take preconditions to go after these bots, so they have to remove them out of national security concerns? But they want the bots because it's more activity on their platform, more money. I mean, how much of X is bots right now? How much of it is automated replies with verified accounts? We see that all the time. How much of X's membership is actually real people?
I kind of want to talk about one thing that you brought up, Wick, and then we can give it over to Tyler. See, you brought up the docs list, and this is maybe like tangential to the subject at hand, but I do think it's interesting because I heard a lot of people say that doxing leads to danger, and there's this idea of a right to privacy specifically for streamers, where they think that they can do whatever. However, it's kind of interesting to me because you go to Hollywood, you could go get a star map, and I can go drive around. I can go see Richard Dean Anderson's house. I can go
Russian
see,
bot farm
you
or
know,
some
anybody's
real
house. I don't know
farm?
why I picked him randomly, but you can go see Brad Pitt's house. You pick all these guys' houses, right? And must have been watching Stargate. I don't know. And you can go see these things, and that's fine, right? And then if you go on and you're a well-known public person, like on Fox News, and you're not even like, I don't know, like the pundits at nighttime after 5 or CNN, but like a daytime host who probably only has a couple 100K people following them or whatever. But if they say something wild, then you know their public information is probably also out there. Nobody's got a problem with that. However, say like somebody like Destiny or Nick Fuentes says it, who's got millions of followers, and they get doxxed, people have a problem, right? Or say I say something and I got doxxed with like, you know, I don't know, a few thousand followers, people are going to be like, oh, well, he shouldn't have been doxxed. And I'm actually almost of the other opinion now, where like if you say something and you put your face next to it, you shouldn't have the right to privacy. You should have to stand by it, because the old expression used to be talk shit and get hit. You know, you have to live with the consequences. And so I'm kind of curious, why is this new mentality that we have the right to privacy? Is it just this danger aspect? Is that just admitting that both sides have ratcheted up rhetoric so high that we can't even have conversations and put a name next to it without fearing death? Like, that might be a problem. What are our thoughts here? Is doxing?
And also,
My
I just want to
address is
add
not
that most of the
necessary for a good
people,
public conversation.
Sure.
most of the people that were put on that list, on that docs list, a lot of them, from the ones that I've seen, were from Facebook, and they had on their Facebook account where they worked or what city they lived in. And you know, so that's a little different from what I'm looking at. If you're attempting to hide behind anonymity, one thing, but some of these people were posting from accounts that had their first and last name and pictures of their kids on them. So if someone calls your job, then maybe you shouldn't say horrible, disgusting shit on the internet that your job probably has a policy against you saying. Because most jobs literally have a conduct policy that says if you're going to represent that you're a member of our company, you can't say disgusting shit on the internet.
The problem I have with this whole kind of line of thinking is that the mob has a very bad track record of knowing, one, how much accountability is appropriate to what someone has done, and two, getting it accurate. So we saw with this with the Me Too movement. Started off fine. Great people, or not great, but terrible people in Hollywood doing terrible things, needs to be exposed. But then it turned into, well, I had a bad date one night with this guy, and I'm going to blow his name on blast and tell everyone I got raped. It didn't work out very well. And I see this happening again with this current manifestation of people have decided that if you do not, if for whatever reason they are offended at what you said about Charlie Kirk, whether it was actually offensive or not, they feel emboldened and empowered to put your name, address, put your place of business, to call that place of business, right? And to try to get you fired because they're angry. And I am very against mob justice. I don't think mob justice isn't justice. Let's just put that out there. That's my thoughts.
I think often we describe a culture problem in a legal framework, right? Like, our founders wrote the Federalist Papers under pseudonyms. They used pamphlets. Like, the idea that anonymous expression has been part of our politic since the founding and will continue to be. The problem that we have today, and I think Dylan described it well, is that people give credibility to anonymous accounts. When you see someone posting anonymously, that should be, like, in your head, you should go, that's probably a bot. Right? And the more indications are that it's a human, the more credibility you can give it. Like, not everyone does this. I'm not throwing any shade, but like, the reason I use my own name when I do stuff like this and when I post online is because I tell people I'm a lawyer. And when I tell people I'm a lawyer, I'm making a claim of authority and expertise. And I don't think it's fair for me to make that claim anonymously. I think people should be able to verify that if they wanted to. So that is, all of this is to say, there is a problem. Mob justice doesn't work very well, but the problem is downstream of taking anonymous accounts seriously in the first place. And what we need to do as Americans is immunize ourselves, as we typically do over time, and learn how to navigate this new technology and say, okay, you know what? When like X325 with a Uzbekistan ISP address comments on my X post, I'm just not responding to that guy. Like, I don't give a shit. This is not a real person. I understand what's happening, and I'm going to move on. And that actually takes the temperature out of your life pretty quickly.
That's literally how I operate. I think the problem that we have with that is that the algorithm doesn't reward you for that. The algorithm does not reward you for that. If you don't engage with these random bot accounts that are saying crazy stuff that's not even spelled properly 90% of the time, then the algorithm rewards you. But if not, you're on X for 15 years and you have 282 followers, right? Like, it just is what it is.
So I got 3 short points, and then I got one for Grid that I want to jump him back in here on. So Dylan, after the docs, I want to let you know I sent you a big batch of my grandma's recipe banana bread. It should be there very shortly. It's delicious. Bot farms. Bot farms only exist on the internet. Only about 5% of people are on Twitter. I think if we really want to crack down on like Russian and Chinese disinformation, we need to go after the hundreds of millions of dollars they dump into climate change activism in the US and UK. That is one of their major outlets to sow discourse in the United States. Not saying climate change isn't real. They're taking advantage of a legitimate political issue in order to stoke that. As the sole defender of the FCC here, I'm pretty sure, I just want to point out they're doing this to both sides. Fox News is currently in a major lawsuit to lose their license pending the FCC and independent people suing them. It was thrown out in the final days of the Biden administration. It's currently on appeal to get it reinstated right now. So the FCC does go after Fox News as well, even though they're only cable and not a major network, which is a lower standard. But the last point is, Grid, to your opening, you said this is the turning point. It's only going to get worse. I see this personally as the turning point where it starts to get better. You kind of said it was like, well, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, but you just say it's going to probably get worse.
Somebody said it. I'm sure. I can't take credit for it.
You were saying that it's going to get worse from here. I think it's going to get better. We saw Yankee Stadium. We saw vigils around the world. All these people are coming out and saying this was a bridge too far. This was a peaceful guy. He wasn't a criminal. He hurt nobody in his life. He just espoused mostly mainstream views. There were a few that were a little, but generally mainstream views. I think we're going to start turning back toward more peace because a lot of normal people that were just LARPing online were like, whoa, that's a little too real for me. So
yeah, I didn't say it was going to get worse. I'm sorry. I'd love to take credit for
let me. Okay, so y'all brought up the politicians to be a protected class. What about somebody like NewsHour saying that the Pulse nightclub shooter today was a right-wing shooter? Like, it feels like even when y'all are saying, yeah, we want enforcement, it seems kind of like hodgepodge. I don't know.
Wait. Are you saying radical Islam is not right wing?
That's a good question, Dylan. We can dive into that.
Correct.
It's very right wing.
Technically,
on the window
correct.
You use. Technically, yes. In the United States,
technically
I would say
correct.
No. The United States, our right wing wants to ban Muslims from coming into the country.
But fine. But let's say like, hey, I think you should better define that when talking to the public is different than that's misinformation, because it's true. I mean, they went in there because they thought that gay people are discussing that they're a crime against God. And let me just tell you, it's not Islam is the only religion that you hear that in. In the evangelical right, you think something similar. And it's not just radical Islam that targets homosexuals and shootings and violence. So, I mean, it's something that radical Islam and the far-right Christian nationalist right agree upon.
But I mean, look, the devil's always in the details with these statistics. I saw this one chart that made me laugh so hard. It tried to break down political violence by category. And to solve the problem, Dylan, that you raised, it made Islam a separate category, right? So it has left-wing, right-wing.
Or you exclude 9/11. I've seen a lot of them, like
9/11.
Everything but 9/11.
9/11 would make
all
the entire circle just Islamic. So, like, what happens always, and we saw the same thing when we're having the dialogue about mass shooters, right? And how you define mass shooting does all the work when you're talking about how many mass shootings there are.
Right.
So oftentimes, like, yes, it's not a lie. I agree with you, Dylan. Like, they're not lying, but the way we discuss these statistics is hideously misleading. That said, the only remedy is more speech. Like, you can't fix this by having the government solve it, because that only makes things worse. So we just have to learn how to deal with an environment that has a lot of these ideas in it.
100% what Ryan just said there. Like, as bad as you might think misinformation is, empowering the government to decide what's misinformation and what's not misinformation is infinitely worse. Because while if the misinformation is just out there, and I can do my own research, you could do your own research, we could hash it out, we could talk about it, we could discuss it, we could figure it out. If the government's coming in by fiat and saying, this is just a lie, it first of all doesn't work, right? It doesn't really, we saw this with the COVID shit, right? It didn't really help the situation. It just made everyone trust the institutions less, okay? And I don't think the government should be in the business of deciding truth from lies. I don't think the government should be in the business of deciding who I can listen to and who I can't listen to.
Federal government.
And I think that the misinformation problem, it's a marketplace problem. It's downstream, actually. The misinformation isn't the problem. The problem is that people want that misinformation.
So I agree
right?
with
It's a marketplace. They've decided that I want information that justifies my worldview, and I will pay, whether that be through attention or actual money, whoever's willing to say what I already believe.
So I agree with you, Wick, but you're also not taking into consideration that the justice system is also part of the government, and we do want them to somewhat decide truth to a degree. Other than that, though, I agree with you, because if you look at Pulse nightclub, people were saying he was intentionally targeting gay people. Pulse nightclub was his second choice, and it was a rash change at the end of the day because he was actually trying to target Disney World. He wanted to go into Disney World and shoot up anybody he could get his hands on, and since the security was too tight, according to the FBI, he switched his target at the last minute to Pulse nightclub. So we got from the government at the time that it wasn't radical Islam. We got from the government at the time that it was an anti-gay hate crime specifically targeted at gay people, and the FBI, and that he was also on Grindr, and the FBI investigation actually showed us none of that was true, and Disney World was his target, and he couldn't get in.
I mean, why? But if he couldn't get in the, I will say, if you're gonna go do a terror attack, and then you're like, you can't get it, and you can't do it, and then you decide to go shoot up the gay club, it is an anti-gay terror attack. It's like, out of all the clubs, it happens. Like,
that's fair.
He made that decision because it was the best he could do, was go slaughter a bunch of gay people. It's still an anti-gay terror attack.
That's fair, but his intention was just to kill as many people as possible, and he wanted to.
Well, but Disney is also haram, so he would view it as all the same sinners. Like, the gay is just a different version of sin.
Disney praised
at least in that view, that from the viewpoint of him.
But I mean, I do think it's an important, just because it is easy to talk about misinformation today, and it's so different, the bots, social media, there's this whole different ecosystem, and I take that point. But oftentimes, I love Steven Pinker. He's terrible at philosophy, great at data. But his book, Enlightenment Now, is wonderful. And one of the things he says is, if you find yourself nostalgic for the past, you're probably wearing rose-colored glasses. Like, in the 30s, the New York Times had their foreign correspondent in Germany was a Nazi, and they knew he was a Nazi. And they valued the fact that he was a Nazi because it got them information from the Nazi regime that they weren't able to publish. But he downplayed the Jewish Holocaust in the New York Times for a long, long time. So the idea that like misinformation is this brand new phenomenon that's never happened before is totally false. This has always been the case. And the answer, as it always is that the American population has to develop antibodies. They have to learn to spot it. They have to learn how to deal with it. They need to work through it and have better conversations. Because this isn't new. This is old.
Exactly.
And, we're just going to have to figure it out.
It's happening today still with Hamas. Yes. Hamas-sanctioned, it'll be quick, Hamas-sanctioned reporters reporting to all these U.S. outlets and then posting it uncritically. It's happening the same thing. And one of the worst offenders was somebody cited earlier named Mehdi Hassan, who was extremely radical when it came to Israel and escalating the hell out of that situation.
Okay, I agree with you, Ryan, but, and this but's a pretty big but, okay, is I think that we could say that war has always been with us, but we can acknowledge that certain technological advancements have changed what that looks like in fundamental ways that we would be foolish to ignore. Like the world before the machine gun looks a lot different than the world after the machine gun. The world before the nuclear bomb looks a lot different than the world after the nuclear bomb. The world before drones looks a lot different than the world after drones, right? And so I get your point that there's always been misinformation, but I would posit to you that we do live in a world where we are now in a situation where everyone has kind of this, for lack of a better term, a social nuclear bomb, right? That they keep in their pockets, right? That they're willing to kind of be able to spout off all sorts of things, right? In a manner that can reach more people than any other point in our history quicker, right? Like just a random nobody, right? Could do that. What is the answer to this? We do have to develop antibodies. I agree with you, but I don't like downplaying it and trying to pretend it's just like the past. I don't think it is.
The answer is not giving that technology to 11-year-olds, right? And expecting them to know what to do with it. That's the problem with the shooter that just shot Charlie Kirk. He's been habitually online since he was 10, 11 years old. He was raised by Reddit and 4chan and Discord and memes. And all of a sudden, he meets the first person he's probably ever been in love with in his entire life and thinks because this person is saying things that may not align with his worldview,
I was watching Salad
he needs
Fingers
to
at, like,
murder
10.
him in front of his children in 4K. It's a problem. You can't just give children supercomputers and expect them to know what to do with it. So what we need to do is educate people on what to do on the internet, what's appropriate for children and what's not, why children shouldn't be on things like Discord and Reddit and 4chan. How do we prevent children from accessing things like that? Because this wouldn't have happened if this kid probably hadn't been raised by the internet. The memes he inscribed on those bullets were popular in like 2013, and the kid was 22 years old. He's been habitually on the internet forever. There's images of his mother celebrating the fact that he will be able to ignore them more because he got all of the computer accessories he wanted for Christmas. That's the issue. And the internet is polarizing. You can choose what you're around.
Without trying to derail the
But
conversation.
no one's talking about that.
If you agree with this point and you're interested in it, Gene Twenge and Jonathan Haidt have written tremendously important work about the dangers of social media and screens for kids as they develop. They've tracked it. They have a tremendous body of literature on it. I'm not going to summarize it, but just if this point resonates with you, go read Gene Twenge, go read Jonathan Haidt. They're phenomenal.
People that have been on the internet for a long time, and I'm a even-headed radical.
I mean, it might be true. It also might not be true. I mean, the dude isn't even talking to investigators. His mouth is shut closed. It could be that, the Reddit and the Discord corrupted his mind. He didn't have enough social interactions, didn't touch enough grass, and then convinced himself that this would somehow help the country. It could also equally be true that after he turned 18, he was radicalized and he's just using old memes because he wanted to hear Ted Cruz say "bulge owo" on national television. Because it'd be kind of weird, and the confusion it caused with investigators, people saying that bulge owo is like trans ideology in a bullet casing. It left investigators scrambling, so they were confused at the silly shit that they were saying.
I don't know if they're 2013 memes though, because the Helldivers 2 didn't come out till like.
Well, that meme. Hold on.
Notices bulge uwu meme is specifically 2013.
So,
that one specifically is very, very old.
That's actually interesting you bring up the Helldivers thing because the hey
I'm
fascist.
so glad I
this.
didn't know that.
Well, is interesting because that could be a line in the game. I don't actually know that it is a specific line. I have never heard that line specifically, although it is similar. And the code that he puts on there
the code is from Helldivers.
Well, the code doesn't actually match up with anything. I like that. So
I think the phrase is from Helldivers too. It's supposed the code, if I remember correctly, it's supposed to be the combination
to
throw a bomb. In the phrase "catch this fascist,"
yeah, I mean, as an avid Helldivers
allegory of the definition, you define all your enemies.
Yeah,
well,
I'm
just saying.
5,000 hours on
they would put on it was a meme
well,
from dropping a bomb on that video game. That combination drops a bomb on that video game, and they would put all kinds of things on it.
As an avid Helldivers 2 player, let me tell you two things. One, that exact line, as far as I'm aware, maybe I've missed the line, has never appeared in the game. Two, that code, that code is not matched up with any code that I have ever used in there. It is close to one, but it's still missing a line. So just to throw that out there, I think that is kind of sus, and it does match up to some other movements.
I think it's weird you think insane people are that precise.
The critique of Helldivers is that you're playing as the fascist.
Solid point.
You are the fascist in Helldivers. You're basically the Stormship Trooper going in and killing the bugs.
He literally said,
"This
is from the shooter himself in his text messages to his roommate." He literally said, "Remember how I was engraving bullets? The fucking messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulge uwu on Fox News, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm gonna have to leave it." Talking about the rifle.
He was a
you did it.
Those are his own text messages.
True.
It's
Yeah.
also in
Those
the
are
text
confirmed
messages
texts
where
that they were
he's-
discussing
Yes.
before the shooting with their partner about
Yes.
I think it
about
was after the shooting.
what they were going to
Yeah,
use to
yeah.
assassinate
Done.
Charlie.
Shooting
That
had
was
just
after.
happened.
That's after he already
After
did
the
it. He was
shooting.
talking
Oh,
about
okay. I
going
thought you
back
were-
to get the
I
rifle.
thought you
No,
were
that's
telling me
after
they had
the
some
fact.
pre-knowledge. That would be a huge update to the story.
No.
Well, let's talk about that actually. So I've seen on the right, and I think this is actually a valid criticism. I have some trans friends. I, as a Christian, don't believe in hating the person. You hate the sin or whatever. But whenever I sit here to see
Accurate.
the idea that on the right, they're like, oh, it's a trans death cult, it's a trans, terror group. I'm a little concerned because the one thing I keep seeing in the news is this is the trans person that's gone and been working with the police in depth, and that should be applauded. We should be saying good for them for working with the cops. That's a good thing, especially if they didn't have any foreknowledge. If there is some extreme terror cell out there, like that, I know they are attached to, like, what was it? The Queers with Guns organization.
I specifically said that publicly.
That would be bad, but I think I'm concerned because it's going to be a backlash from the right, against these people, and a lot of people are going to get caught up, and that's inflammatory language as well. But I think that the bigger concern I have is whenever we play these like word games, like where one side will say something and then when the other side matches it, they're like, well, I didn't actually say that. Like we saw the Illinois governor say he wasn't calling people Nazis, and we have at least 12 different videos of him saying these exact things, and it seems like this bait and switch where only one side is being held accountable, and then when the other side matches this like harsh rhetoric, it's a problem. Do y'all agree with that sentiment?
Any side, right, that is anyone who is trying to play the I know who did it game before we have any information is guilty. No matter if you're on the right or the left. If you're trying to play the I know who did it, it must have been a tranny. I'm a trans person, sorry. Apologize.
Damn!
I'm quoting Nancy Mace. Okay? I'm literally quoting Nancy Mace.
Take out the context. Clip
Flip
it.
it.
Don't clip it. Don't clip it.
It was a quote, okay?
Can you say man and woman face?
Gibbs, am I the only lib here? Where do they go?
I believe you are.
Damn.
Quoting Nancy Mace, okay?
Welcome to the Republican Party, I guess. Wick.
That's what she said. That's the word she used. I'm just saying. My point is, anyone saying that or they were a graper or whatever are equally guilty. Yes.
What? Well, hold on. You posted.
Wait,
about
can we get
apology,
original agreement? Can we get universal agreement that anybody who participates in the rat race when they're trying to use bodies like Charlie Kirk's or any Melissa Hortman's like a siege weapon, a political siege, to just throw it and start accusing, digging. Oh, they're from LA. They must be a liberal. Right. Oh, I heard they were raised by a conservative. I guess they're a MAGA tard. Or they go through all this different stuff because all they care about is being able to do the dunk. They don't care about Charlie's wife. They don't care about Charlie's kid. They don't care about Melissa Hortman. They just care about getting those views. Libs of TikTok, all these people trying to like profit and say civil war and this. This is all about exploiting this moment for their own personal gain. These are bad actors, and they should be socially penalized for it.
None of them are doing
I
that.
like where your head's at, and I really want to say, Dylan, let me ask something. So, I don't know if you've been able to keep up with the news where you're at. I assume that you have pretty good internet, but I don't want to make too many assumptions. What do you think about the attacks on Erica Kirk and the speeches that she's given and the stance that she's taken? What do you think about that? What's your observation?
I mean, I've seen some pretty gross stuff on social media. I think that, a widow is going to be in a state of mind that's going to be extremely volatile. I'm going to have a certain amount of leeway that I'm just going to give her, considering the circumstances that she's in, that I would give for anybody who's grieving. I watched my grandmother recently get widowed by the man who raised me, and like watching like the emotions and volatile state that people can go through. I'm sympathetic to that. She's also becoming the new leader of Turning Point USA. She's also entering herself in the political conversation. She's talking about how, how this has charged her up. And I think that she's going to make a big crash into the scene. And I think that's ultimately going to open her up to a lot of critique. So as long as it has to do with the tragedy around her husband's killing, then I'm, of course, not going to, like, pile on her for anything. But if she starts saying, for example, I hear there's whispers at the DOJ about trans gun control, saying that trans people, due to their due to them being trans, they are not in a state where they should be allowed to own guns. That idea being pushed by a Republican White House is quite crazy, considering how much. I mean, Trump got backlash for the bump stock ban, and now he's going to go and start opening that Pandora's box. I think we need to be, if let's, for example, she started engaging in something like that, supported that, then it's the verbal marketplace, and what's going to happen is going to happen. She's going to get critiqued. So I think that, of course, as long as you have that separation, then all's fair.
Yeah. It's interesting how all of these various.
Well, Grid, he makes an interesting point here. I think that I would like to ask you about, actually. Dylan just made a good point about the trans gun control. I am avidly. I mean, I don't think there's an issue that I might be more against Trump on than that. Like, I would freak out, because what's going to happen is, first we label trans a mental issue, and then they're going to turn around and label conservatism or something a mental issue.
What about PTSD? Any vets with PTSD? Oh, that's too unstable. You can't have a fire. This is a Pandora's box for gun rights.
Yeah, anxiety. Anyone that's ever had an anxiety prescription will have gun rights.
So the FAA already does that. So the gun control's late to the party on that. So if you take, Dylan, I don't know if you're a pilot, but if you were a pilot and you take medication for anxiety, or maybe you had an injury and you took something that as a side effect it messes with your head a little bit. If you admit that to the FAA, they will pull your pilot's license.
Yeah.
If you admit that you took that, and pilots go to great lengths to cover up these things there's actually a YouTuber, Zyla Foxen or something like that. I forget. I don't watch her channel. And she apparently did a whole series on how she went to counseling, and that she had a really stressful time. She was having some female problems that I don't understand, but I'm certain other women would, hormonal and whatnot. And she needed some drugs to help her out and ease, just even her out. And she got through it. And the FAA's pulled her pilot's license for admitting that she had a problem, and she got treatment for it. And she's actually in talks with them now to get her license back. But the same thing could be applied to something like firearm ownership, and it's so arbitrary. Like, they don't ask if you're okay. They don't talk to your doctor and say, yeah, no, he's fine. He's good. He's a good guy. She's a good person. They just do it. So no, we don't want that. We don't want. Look, I'm a constitutional conservative. I want the smallest possible government we can have, especially federal. Federal government, in my opinion, needs to be we need to just revamp. Like, all the 3-letter agencies, all of them, gone. If that happened overnight, I'd be so happy. I would dance in the streets, and I don't dance. But this is one of the places where we may align a lot, because I don't believe in any of the current 3-letter agencies. I don't think any of them do their job. They do anything.
I'll disagree with you a bit here. I'll disagree with you a bit, because I grew up in Maryland, and both of my grandparents who raised me were federal workers. My grandfather worked for the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. He helped, design the $100 security code things that made them a lot harder to counterfeit. He was a machinist, worked the CNC machines. My grandmother was a cook for the federal government, research cook and such. And now the old facility that she ran, well, they didn't run, but was part of in our area is getting shut down. There's a lot of cuts to, I think, some good workers at HHS and other federal agencies. And I understand that there's a question about where the federal government should be involved. For example, when we talk about the FCC. But I also believe that in the way that the discussion is being done is talking about these federal workers in DC almost like a swamp. That when you talk about these civil servants, they're described as money grubbing, greedy people who are getting very well off, who are basically sucking off the teat of the state. But a lot of the people who are getting knocked out and who are taking the deals to leave are really experienced civil servants that once you lose these people, you're losing decades of experience you will not get back easily. These are people, I'm having conversations with them, and they're saying things to me like, look, I'm going to get paid double in the private sector. It's fine. I just don't know who's going to do my job, because my job sucked, but I did it because I thought it needed to be done.
The exact
and so I understand that people, distrust, the feds But a lot of these people are civil servants who do their job because they love their country, they want to serve their country, and I think that we're losing a lot of skill right now that's not going to be that easy to build back once we realize we need it. Like when those nuclear safety people were fired and they had to go scramble to go rehire them back because these Doge purges were just completely out of control and constitutionally questionable.
Defund the police is the same thing. Where they fired all those cops and they fucking, as soon as they try to refund 2 years later and get them back, most didn't come back. Some cities are still seeing 40% less police. Sorry to cut you off, Ryan. I'm trying to get to Dylan for his point like 10 minutes ago. You are right. These people calling for this absolutely are out for themselves. Everyone's saying someone needs to start a revolution to get rid of capitalists, or someone needs to go start a civil war against the left wingers. They never want to do it. They're always the one that's, I'm on probation, man. I can't go fight, but you should go do it and ruin the rest of your life. So, but what we've seen for decades, though, is, again, radical Islam couldn't even be said because the U.S. public was so bigoted that they'd have a backlash against Muslims that would be so bad that we couldn't even classify this properly. Or we see the pushes like 16 Project against white supremacy is the foundation of our country, the foundation of the police. We see criminals that were being let out with soft on crime policies, going after root causes, saying these guys are actually innocent baby Aladdins that need to go out and continue to commit crime, but we really need to get rid of the police. They're the evil ones causing all the trouble. So a lot of these people that have been vilified over the years with this, like mass shootings is another one. If you hear mass shootings, it's a white male problem, but when you actually go to the Mother Jones database and break it down, whites are drastically underrepresented on that, and black and trans mass shooters are overrepresented. But again, like, I'm not attacking those demographics. I'm just trying to dispel that this idea that it's always been the U.S. population that needs to be PC talked to because they're going to go off and hurt somebody, or they're going to be the ones that actually are violent, so we can't tell them the truth. I don't like that shit, and nobody else does, and that kind of ruins the trust in the government that I like.
Ryan, I'm going to let you go, then I want to get in it. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a few. People said a lot of interesting stuff, so I'm just going to drop a few comments that touch on a few different things. One of my favorite Thomas Sowell quotes is, "The kind of people who talk about the root causes of crime never talk about leniency." And, like, there's a lot of root causes for crime, but one of them is not actually deterring it, not actually punishing it, because we know that the vast majority of crime is done by a tiny percentage of the population. So that's one point. Another point just about, like, executive agencies. I understand we live in a complex world, and at this point, these agencies do a ton of stuff, and like Department of Energy, like, how do you replace that expertise? Like, it is actually a really serious problem, and we rely on these agencies. So I'm not suggesting that you take a buzzsaw to them all overnight. I am suggesting, though, that there's a myth of neutral expertise. The myth is that you can have these agencies and that they'll just be experts and they'll do what they do, and there's no politics, there's no judgment calls. It's not a real thing. And that's why these agencies are in the executive branch, because the president is accountable to the people and bureaucrats are not. So when you say we should have these agencies, you are also saying, and those agencies should follow the president's directives, because that's how it's going to work. And if you're not comfortable with it being the president who's dictating what the agency policies are, then that's a tool that needs to get put away. So maybe nuclear energy, Dylan, is a thing that we should keep. Maybe Department of Energy is a good one. Maybe the FCC is outdated. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing, but we have to just be aware of who we're giving power to when we give this power.
Well, let's talk about that. That's a good segue into another portion of this convo I wanted to have, which is policy. I know people on the right, as a right leaner myself, have been saying that it's Democrat-led policy, not just rhetoric. Rhetoric, we've all seemed to agree it's rhetoric on both sides that's gotten heated, and that's led to some deplorable situations. However, what about policy? I've seen people on the right claiming, specifically with this Ernia situation, that it's leading to more death and it's leading to more crime. I can point to things like the $1,100 rule in California in some cities. We could look at this DEI problem we have here with Ernia. I'm sure I'm butchering her name, but et cetera, et cetera. Do we think that it is left-leaning policy that's causing most of these issues? I guess we lost Wick. We'll get him back, I'm sure. And
you see, he froze up.
Oh, yeah,
not most, but definitely contributing. I have 3 pages in this document about all these smart on crime policies that Kamala Harris wrote a book on that 35 cities have been trying to pass. I have exact names of the DAs and the people in power that have been doing these, as well as the exact policies. Absolutely, this is a massive leniency, refusing to prosecute low-level crimes, decriminalizing a lot of crimes, lowering major crimes down to low-level crimes. We're saying crime is dropping. No, we're policing it less. And if you look at victimization data versus arrest data, arrests are way down. Victimization data is the highest it's been since 2012. So and this is unreported crimes as well. We're seeing a ton of crime that's not getting reported anymore. We're seeing wait times go drastically up. We're seeing cities with 40% less police officers after they defunded and then refunded them. There's just it's absolutely policy, and it's also the cultural move, calling police inherently racist because the first police whatever in the United States was to catch slaves, which was legal at the time. So yes, but police predates the United States. The UK, who we borrowed our entire the Blackstonian legal system from, also had police forces before the United States existed. So these tropes that are being used to excuse away violence in inner cities and violence against police, it's always been to vilify, and it's absolutely causing more crime. It's just not responsible for the majority.
Wick is having technical difficulties, apparently.
You know what? Then I'll take a swing. So I'll be since Wick's gone, I have to go harder. I think Trump is going to end up increasing crime through how he's engaging with law enforcement and the general public, especially in communities that don't support him. I'm in Maryland. I'm right outside of D.C. DC locals don't like the troop deployment. He talks about the moderate decrease in crime that has been in the short-term period since he's deployed the troops. Many people, me included, are very skeptical about how long that's going to be sustained. The constitutionality of sustaining that, being able to work with local leaders, and how repeatable this is in major cities, as he talks about why it's called the Department of War and we're bringing it over to the Windy City. How he discusses this sounds like a very us versus them. We're going to war with this city, we're going to war with that city, we're going to go in there and we're going to get on the ground, when these cities don't want him. And there's a question of whether or not the governor needs to approve it. But if you continue to engage in this way with law enforcement, if you say that federal law enforcement officers don't need to ID themselves, they don't need to show their face, they'll behave how they behave and they'll remain anonymous, and that's just how it's going to go, there's going to be a building amount of distrust that is going to make it harder for the federal government to engage in these local initiatives. There was no communication with Washington, D.C. before they took over. Zero. Not with the city council, not with the mayor, not with local leaders, nothing. And so when they got on the ground, what did they end up doing? Picking up fucking trash off the street and harassing people who were smoking on their porch, which just pissed people off. And so, yeah, there's a problem with crime. There's been a problem with crime in this country for quite a bit. There's a problem with crime. I don't see how Trump's approach of this federal down hammer approach with soldiers who aren't trained in policing is going to do anything. If you believed that the problem was defunding the police, then you fund police, not military patrols. And what did Tim Waltz say? Tanks next to Chipotle's? It's not. It's ruining the relationship that is necessary to build if you're going to properly police in these communities.
Before everybody goes, let me just ask Dylan one real quick question, and then I want to see what he thinks, and then y'all can go. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you are back. You're good. So Dylan, you mentioned the wearing the mask. I actually agree with you to some extent. I don't like the masks, right? I think it's sus. However, on the flip side, I've also said I think it's okay to get doxxed, because if you're going to say something or you're going to do something, you shouldn't have a right to privacy in this kind of regard. Why do you agree with that statement, especially with the cops? What's the difference between having a political statement and you having to have your face to it if you say it publicly and expect anonymity versus working for the government and not having the safety? What's the difference here? What do you think?
I think when you're working for the government and you have legal power over your neighbors, that there needs to be as much transparency as physically possible. If somebody has the power to either shoot me, put me in the back of a car, disappear me, or put me on trial, if all of these things exist, if the state has these powers over me, then the state has to be accountable to me. Not only in the judges, not only with the representatives, but even with the beat cop on the street. If you're a police officer, you're a servant of the community, and you should be a member of the community, and the community should build a good relationship with you. You can't build a relationship with somebody you don't know, federal agents that barge in the night, take people away, and all people see is masked men and kids screaming as their parents are getting dragged away. It's not building a relationship with locals, and it's why Trump's #1 issue, immigration, has turned against him.
Dylan, I actually, in broad strokes, couldn't agree with you more. ICE is a very poorly suited tool for doing the work it's doing right now. ICE is essentially a paramilitary organization. It's not a local policing organization. It doesn't have ties to the community. Now, that said, why are the raids happening? Well, we used to have a whole lot of systems whereby local communities would arrest people, run their immigration information, and if they were arrested for a crime and they were illegal, their information would be given to ICE, they would cooperate, and they would be deported. Obama used the Secure Communities program in his first term. That's how he got his numbers so high, was through this kind of cooperation. But people who are opposed to immigration enforcement, basically in all cases, litigate and shut these programs down, politically organize, create sanctuary cities and sanctuary policies. So what you have is you no longer have cooperation. And in the absence of cooperation, federal enforcement looks different. So I totally agree with you that I would like to see ICE use less. And I think ICE is going to instigate a lot of problems, but that doesn't mean you can't enforce federal law. The only way, and the way, I think the system we had previously, where local communities participated and helped and relied on local police, like you were talking about, Dylan, who have clout in the communities, who have relationships, was better. And we should go back to that. But the problem is that's not a federal decision. That's a state and local decision. And that's just up to the people who are in those communities voting.
Don't we have
It's true, but I will
cities?
say, wait, I do want to respond to that because I do think that was directed at me. That's true that these localities, not all of them are participating or cooperating with ICE, but that is also for some of these localities, it isn't true in all these localities, but for some of these localities, it's because of the behavior of ICE. It's how ICE has behaved. It's because of high profile scandals. It's because of either the interests of the local community who are interested in participating with ICE. Any number one of these regions, some might be illegitimate, some might be legitimate. ICE has lost the trust of a large swath of the American public, and that trust is rapidly deteriorating right now. Now, we can ask about how we got to this point, but it's getting to the point where the President of the United States is talking about deporting U.S. citizens to foreign countries and having them stay in foreign prisons like in El Salvador and other locations. And whether or not he's being honest or he's just saying that to just try to like impress Bukele or whatever, this is getting to the American public. I hear that, and what does that make me think? Hey, person walks up to me, I don't know who they are, they're masked, they don't identify themselves, and I hear the president talk about deporting American citizens as he's trying to shut down his credit. This creates fear in blue cities. This creates fear in blue states that is going to make it impossible to cooperate with. One of the president's top jobs is to be a figurehead, to be the chief of the armed forces and to be a figurehead. And Trump is the worst figurehead for the United States of any president in the United States when in our history when it comes to this type of stuff. So I acknowledge that localities haven't cooperated with ICE, but Trump's making it worse with every statement he puts out on deportations, going to war with Chicago. It's going to make it so there's going to be no desire whatsoever to cooperate with Trump, and there's no compromise available.
And to piggyback off that, just real quick, right? And I'll be concise. Trump wants that. He wants that tension. He is purposefully ratcheting up that tension because he thinks it will help him politically and help him achieve power. He is doing this on purpose. This is not an accident. This is not a side effect unintended. This is absolutely on purpose. And I want to also point out, like, when we talk about things being left versus right and things like that, right? A lot of people see how the right has reacted, frankly, to people being snatched from their homes, thrown into foreign prisons, right, to CCOT, into Alligator Alcatraz, how people were going buying merch. And they saw people celebrate this, to watch these kind of like ASMR of people being dragged off to prison and laughing. The White House Twitter would post Giblified versions of people being thrown in jail and women crying. And how are we going to bring the country together, right? How are we going to bring the country together when, like, how am I going to take anyone's complaint about the reaction to Charlie Kirk seriously, right? And I condemn, disavow, it was gross the way many on the left celebrated, but I don't take the right-wingers' complaints on this seriously because I saw how they celebrated.
You kind of did too, right?
Fucking dragged to CCOT.
I got something for Ryan here.
Yeah,
I mean, you kind of did too, though, Wick, right? You kind of like celebrated, right?
How?
I mean, didn't you post on Twitter or whatever, you know, that you were, you know, you made some pretty interesting comments.
Such as?
I mean, I don't have, like, give me a second.
Let me get with Ryan while you look for that, because I want to address this comment before you guys move on. So Ryan, I do like your idea. I agree with Dylan. It would be nice to have these cooperating, but currently there's 13 sanctuary states and 220 sanctuary cities that are all blatantly ignoring federal immigration law, telling their officers that work for them not to comply with federal immigration officers. And to Dylan's point earlier, we are seeing one crime increase under Trump, and that's the 1,000% increase of attacks against federal officers who are deporting people in the country illegally. So if these people aren't allowed to carry out federal law, which is their job and legally permitted, I mean, I don't see a world where we're going to
hold on, Tyler, hold on. All right, listen, I'm not as pro-border and immigration as you can get. I mean, but that being said, just to play devil's advocate here, if you suddenly start enforcing law, you haven't.
I'm sorry, wait, I was thinking of somebody else. For the
last year, for the last 4 years or so, and you push an ICE agency out and add however many thousand people, wouldn't you also agree that's going to cause an increase in assaults just by default?
Yeah, but it's still not right to assault federal officers, and just because the reason sounds kind of justified doesn't make the action necessarily good. Yeah, Wick, I will say, has been fairly good about the Charlie Kirk thing generally. There was a little bit of trying to debunk the left-wing theory that kind of went into QAnon levels of speculation, but it's a very minor critique. I wasn't going to bring any of it up.
And look, I think that I am, as I said before, I'm totally fine with the idea that we want to use ICE more sparingly than we are. And I would love to have a system to enforcement that worked, that wasn't reliant on raids in the way that we have it. The fact is that there is not cooperation. And the cooperation, by the way, this is not like a Trump-specific thing. Like, the Secure Communities program got killed during the Obama years. So it's like the people who are litigating and are against enforcement of immigration law are against it flat stop. There's nothing you can do to make them happy. And it reminds me of what Trump said at his State of the Union when he talked about immigration. He got the Republican applause. He didn't get any Democrat applause. And he said, "This is my 5th such speech to Congress, and once again, I look at Democrats in front of me, and I realize there's absolutely nothing I can do to make them happy, or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I could do. I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, a disease that would wipe out entire nations, or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people sitting right will not clap, will not stand, and certainly will not cheer for these astronomical achievements. They won't do it no matter what." And I think he's right. And part of that is we've gotten to the point where it is incredibly rare to have somebody who identifies on the left say anything good about Donald Trump. It's incredibly rare for somebody who identifies on the right to say anything good about a Democrat, or just to admit that the other side is doing something well, or that something has gotten better, or that we fixed a problem. And that's in itself an issue. One of the dumbest thing about our politics right now is that we swing from polarity to polarity back and forth. And whenever the next person takes office, their first priority is to undo everything the other person did, rather than ask what works and what doesn't. There's some examples to the contrary. Biden kept Trump's China steel tariff is the first one that comes to mind. But oftentimes, that's our politics right now. And I think we can do better. Like, we can admit when the other side gets something right and just, own that and talk about that. But it does not tend to happen.
Yeah, one of the reasons that that's the case is because unfortunately, and this has been going on since Bush, basically, is more and more each side's executives is governing by executive orders.
What?
And what can be done by executive order can be undone by executive order. So it leads to these very swingy situations where you're just executive order is canceling out another executive order. And right now Trump is what's he at? Does anyone know the number off the top of their head?
Astronomically high.
Yeah, it's beating everyone. He's setting records here, okay? We need to go back to actually using the legislature to legislate, right? Using the legislature to pass actual laws. And the reason that process is harder and slower is because it's harder to actually overturn, right? You can't just Usually, right? You can't just sign that away with a wave of a pen, right? You actually have to use the legislature. So I'm with you on the swinginess, but I think one of the only ways that gets done is if we address the executive orders.
You're one hop away from being a small government originalist. So I'm going to make my pitch. I know you won't work, but I'm going to make my pitch. You're 100% right about that. But the legislature often gridlocks. It does. And when the legislature gridlocks, we should not look to the Supreme Court. We should not look to the president to pass laws or change the Constitution in a way that the people don't support. Instead, we should limit the scope of the federal government, and we should let the states have more control over policy because they are responsive to the people. The whole point of originalism, the whole point of limited government federalism is to avoid scenarios where the courts or the president are seizing power to themselves because Congress isn't acting. When the people don't have a majority and you can't pass a law in Congress, do it locally. Locally is 100 times better. You know the people, you know the issues, you know what they believe. It works.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I agree with that. And it's interesting. It's been interesting to me for a while how Congress has basically ceded its power to the Supreme Court. They basically lazily enact a law, and then it just goes to the Supreme Court, and they either confirm that it's constitutional and tweak it and make it work better, or they deny it. And Congress says, "Look, we tried, we did our best, guys. We passed a law, and it didn't go." It's very lazy, and Congress just is bad, man. It's bad. Term limits. Who's with me?
No.
Term limits.
It's up to the voters.
Boo!
I'm with you on term limits,
baby.
I'll
Term
stand
limits.
with you on that one.
See, not even all the Republicans agree on that one.
How about we do the Warren Buffett thing? If the country has a deficit, you can't be reelected.
I don't know about that. There's very good reasons to have a deficit.
There's
very good reasons to have a deficit.
Well, it looks like we're...
Hold on. That I don't want. If a deficit is needed, I don't want the politician to fear doing what is needed because there is some arbitrary rule that he can't be reelected if he goes into deficit. And
I am memeing a bit.
I think it was more of an obtuse point, like a larger, just kind of a joke.
I do find this term limits thing kind of interesting.
Can I ask a question to Tyler? I'm looking at this like victimization data you sent me. You were going off of those like 40%, 30% increases of the different crimes. I noticed that this ends at like 2023, and it is true that in 2023 that in cities like Baltimore and DC that there was a spike in crime. But it's also been heavily covered since this data of what you've sent me, that in the last 2 years, there's been a more than 50% decrease in violent crimes in a city like DC, which Trump said was the impetus for his deployment of troops and why we couldn't even negotiate with the locals. We can't even ask DC what they want because we have to because it's a crisis, a national security crisis. So I don't see this justifying any recent government surges.
Two things for that. One, the actual complete numbers of crimes don't actually come out till about a year and a half after the year ends, roughly a year after the year ends. A lot of it gets revised. A lot of these different precincts and don't report to the end of the year. So if you're looking at current year data, generally it's very incomplete. Secondly, for that, we also saw that DC was cooking their books to show less crime that was actually happening. Somebody got suspended and investigated for it.
So you think that the official numbers are just like bogus, that there hasn't been a decrease in the last 2 years?
It could very well be. I don't know. It's just we have to see the revised. It's like looking at the initial jobs numbers. It's kind of a good indicator, but they could be completely revised and will look absolutely different a year later.
Hold on. Well, I was gonna wrap it up, but now I gotta ask a question. Wait, so like, obviously it's changed the numbers because I don't know about DC specifically, but we can look at San Diego and San Francisco where they have they put a policy in place where you're not gonna arrest or you're not gonna prosecute any crime under $1,000 or $1,100, I believe. And it's like, well, of course you're not gonna have as much crime if you're not prosecuting those crimes. Just like in San Antonio and Austin and Houston,
New York,
where these are different. Where we decreased
victimization data.
Well, we decreased with marijuana possession from 4 ounces to 2 ounces, and like depending on the city, they don't prosecute those crimes anymore. Of course, crime's going to go down. Like you're not prosecuting a crime. Like,
all those offenses, though, show up in victimization data still, even if the cops don't get called. Like, let's say your
well, hold on, no,
police
they
rate's on
don't.
triple.
No, they don't.
They do. If
No,
you
they
get-
don't.
if
How
you
does
get
how does a
theft against
marijuana
you-
how does marijuana say if I have
I
grams
mean,
of
if there's a
marijuana?
victim, that's a victimless one. All the victim crimes still show up in victimization data. That's so anybody that gets something stolen from them, even if the police don't go after them, it still shows up in the victimization.
Sounds like we're playing with numbers to me. But all right, on that note, let's move to closings here. I know some people got to leave. I also have things going on. Let's start with you, Tyler. What are your closing thoughts here? This has been a much more cordial panel than I anticipated. I'm very impressed, guys. Good job. Round of applause. We managed to tone it down today. I'm very impressed. I thought this was going to be a screaming match, to be totally honest. And I took aspirin before I came on here, thinking that's what's going to happen. But very good job, guys. I'm very proud of you. But go ahead, Tyler. Give us your things.
Oh, so all the things I didn't get to say about everybody's intros, I DM'd them. Just so I thought they were fun arguments. Dylan, again, your point, yes, the problem was defunding the police, but as you said about firing workers in the government and then trying to rehire them after, imagine there was a 2-year gap instead of just a 2-day gap. Getting those officers back has been a massive, drastic disaster for a lot of cities. Again, I think it's in Minneapolis, it's 40% down in officers, and they also tried to abolish their police department. So I see you're right in your prescription, and I like a lot of Ryan's prescriptions, but I just feel like a little bit of a pie in the sky because we have federal law enforcement that's being pushed out by the states that are refusing to go after federal crimes. They're allowing them. The Biden administration, I think it was I might be wrong on this number, it was 1.4 million people with valid deportation orders. They just refused to deport and kept in the country, including Obrego Garcia, who had a valid deportation order in 2019 that fell off in 2022. So I would say that if the laws aren't getting enforced, imagine if it was slavery. Imagine if a state said we're a slavery sanctuary state and allowed it. You'd want the federal government to go in and make sure federal law was being adhered to. It's the same thing with people here illegally, whether you want them to be or not. A path to amnesty is a conversation to have and everything, but until that's on the table, Trump has every right to send his ICE and to get these people out, even if they aren't that effective.
All right. Thank you so much, Ryan.
The country is incredibly big, and the country is incredibly divided, and people think very differently. I used to live in California. I've lived in the New York City area. I've driven, worked, lived across the country. I know people in different communities. There really are different perspectives. We have this beautiful federal system. This was the genius of our founders. And it's not, people talk about the Bill of Rights, that's nice. It was an afterthought. The genius is the structure of the Constitution. And the genius was the idea that people could have laboratories of experimentation. People could live very differently in different parts of the country. And that was okay, subject to the limited areas where the federal government had to nationalize, had to standardize, had to put in a national policy. Trade, defense, immigration down the road. These are things that we understand are national, but not everything is. And if we ask our system to become responsive to 350 million people coast to coast in different communities, it will not be able to. It can't do it. It's not what it was designed to do. And what you see is insane polarization as a result. The Supreme Court, almost no one that I talk to treats the Supreme Court like learned justices applying the law. They treat them like elected politicians. They want them to do their bidding and make the Constitution whatever they think it should be. Why? It's what Wick said. They're frustrated if the legislature's not passing laws, and they view the court as a solution. They want the president to do executive overreach. Why? Because the legislature is not passing laws, and they want the president to fix it. But we have in all the democratic nations in the world, it is the hardest to pass a law in America. Our system is not designed to have a tight, responsive legislature. Our system is designed to have a slow, cumbersome legislature and for the power to reside in the states. And until we fix that, until we start restoring the power to the states, polarization is the only possible result. Because if you have this much power invested in one federal government, people are going to have to fight over it.
All right, thank you so much. Abbers.
Well, speaking of polarization, I'm going to end on, I think, the one thing all of us on this panel can agree on, and that's that political violence has no place in America. There's no reason that anyone from any side should shoot or murder anyone for an opinion. That's not how America does things, right? And so, just to contrast some really horrific statements and to make sure everyone knows this is why this happened, his exact words were, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out." There is no hate that can't be negotiated. There are no words that can't be talked about, that can't be disagreed upon and agreed to disagree upon. We can all agree to disagree on certain things, but we can all come together and agree that political violence has no place here.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Burns.
So I will just say a few things about the crime data. I mean, DC was the example I used. You could also look at Baltimore crime data, or you could look across like most of these major liberal cities as they've seen like some post-COVID crime decreases as the after effects of both the lockdowns and the just effect on the general economy had downward effects on crime. As that has started to register, those rates have gone down. And so again, like, it's one thing to say that there's still a problem with crime. It's another thing to say that while these rates are decreasing, that the problem is so significant that it mandates a national security crisis that can only be solved by overruling the governors of states and deploying troops against the wishes of local residents to engage in policing that these National Guardsmen are not trained for in communities that they're not from. I think that is a policy for failure. I think that's a policy for increasing the tensions in the country. And I don't think you should be deploying any military force in any state without the governor's approval unless it's reached a point of insurrection or such violence that there's no other option. And there were certainly other options in DC. There's certainly other options in Baltimore, and there's certainly other options in these cities. As for, not to mention in the language, again, the Windy City is about to find out why it's called the Department of War. That is the language you use if you don't want to be welcomed into the neighborhood. I agree that racial, political, and all these tensions, I want them down. I want our country united. Those who are trying to exploit these tensions are bad actors. They don't care about your communities. They don't care about the condition your neighbors end up at the end of the day. They care about their bottom dollar. A lot of these people don't even live in the United States. Andrew Tate does not live in the United States. Ian Miles Chong does not live in the United States. When they're talking about civil war, they're talking about you killing your neighbor while they get to watch it on social media, right? We are not at a point anywhere close to civil war, okay? In the 70s, we had such a huge abundance of political bombings and political violence in comparison to now that the idea that there is no way back, we have reached some point that is irreconcilable, that there's only one way that this can be solved now. Anybody talking in that way is your enemy, the enemy of your family, the enemy of your neighbors, the enemy of your community, and the enemy of the republic. Because those are the people that want to see us all destroy each other. And so you should be careful when people are speaking in that type of language that has you acting violent and them profiting. Outside of that, the only thing I'm a little upset that I didn't get to talk about is Trump's new use of RICO in order to go after people who yell at him in restaurants, which seems to be a little bit of an abuse of the First Amendment to say that the same thing that we used to go after the Gambino crime family is now being used because somebody got some saliva on your oysters from them yelling at you about Gaza or whatever. Wish we got some time on that, but obviously, you know, we only have so much time in the world. That's it.
Thanks for being here. All right, Grit.
Yeah, once again, thanks for having me. This was an interesting discussion. It went a lot better than I thought it would. I actually, honestly, other than a few things at Wick, a few roads at Wick went down, I really didn't. I mean, I think we're kind of almost in alignment on more than normal. I do think that we didn't speak enough about the tragedy that was Irina. I can't pronounce her last name because I'm not Dylan. Dylan can probably pronounce it, but I can't. And at the end of the day, we got a lot of crazy people in this country. A lot of people who are disaffected, disenchanted, and disillusioned. Even with the idea of being an American, we should fix that. And a lot of fixing that, unfortunately, is going to have to be with hands across aisles. You know, I remember, growing. I mean, my parents are are blue dog Democrats, right? My mom thinks the greatest person ever walked was John F. Kennedy, and
he's all right.
You know, of course,
he's
I'm
all right.
on the opposite side of that. And we could agree on Kennedy, a lot of things that he did. It seems like that more and more people are looking for reasons to disagree than to agree. I would much rather try and find some common ground. And then when we find uncommon ground, if we need to, you know, then we can have a war of words. And at the end of the day, we walk away, say, hey, good job, appreciate it. Appreciate the conversation, and we move on with life.
All right, thank you.
It's unfortunate that we can't do that currently. And now I'm done. Thank you.
So yeah, your pause got me there. You got me. You bamboozled me. All right, Wick. Last but not least.
Okay, I'll be short but sweet. We are in a dangerous situation in America. Yes, it's been worse before, but that doesn't mean it's not bad now. I am afraid. I am afraid for the future of this country. There are bad actors, both outside the country and inside the country, that do want to see this accelerate, right, into destruction, okay, of our liberal order. And we should stand against that. Dylan was exactly right. Anyone who's calling for violence right now or an escalation of violence is your enemy. You guys don't want to see what war looks like, gang. It's not good. Okay, Dylan probably knows more than most of us, right? With that said, while yes, it is not helpful to play these political games where we say, well, the right's worse, the left's worse, the right's worse, the left's worse, we do have to acknowledge reality in certain cases, right? We do have to deal with the current problem. And it does no one any good to play, well, what about Biden? Or what about Obama? Or what about the Democrats? It doesn't help. It doesn't solve the problem that's happening right now. We don't have a President Obama right now. We don't have a President Biden right now. We do have a President Trump right now. And so we should probably focus on what's ahead of us and what's right here at our doorstep. Gang, if you like what I had to say, or if you don't like what I had to say, you can find me at Wick TV on all platforms. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, I'm having Drew Pavlo on to talk about a few problems I have with a few of his recent takes, if you will. So that should be fun. Tali will be there with us. And Gibbs, thank you for hosting.
Oh, thank you for coming. I also have two Cook announcements. I believe tomorrow, if it doesn't get moved again, and I don't decide to go out and see the women, I will be on Pentuple's comeback stream. Monday, we'll be on Tomatoes, debating something. It's going to be exciting, wild. And more importantly, I have decided I'm going to be doing quite a few live events now because we are Charlie Kirk now. And I think live events are important. And so the first one I think that we have scheduled is I'm going to be in Phoenix on October 2nd. I'm going to be one of the people debating Destiny. So we'll see. It's going to be exciting. We have several more live events coming up. Grid's got some events coming up here, a debate con, and other things. It's going to be good. I highly encourage everybody to get active no matter what side you're on. More talking is better than the alternative. So on that note, Tyler, did you have something you wanted to say before we get out of here?
Grid's debate show tomorrow. Grid does a debate elimination panel on Friday nights. It's a lot of fun. Anybody, people from all sides. Sometimes they do nerd topics only, like Lord of the Rings and shit.
I think we're going to do Nerd Wars round 3 tomorrow night.
Yeah, I won 3-0 last time, so come try to beat my nerdiness. Look at these
that
glasses.
Sounds fun.
It's a good fucking time. So, yeah, anyone
interested? It's what we do is we do
on that note, I'll have to get out of here. We'll be right now. Y'all be good. Thank you so much for coming.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
See ya.
I had to give your show a shout out because, like, all these people have said they're interested that we're here tonight, except for Abby, and none of them show up. So I wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Ryan, I keep meaning to reach out to you to have a discussion with you one day, but I just I get busy and forget, man. I'm sorry.
Dude, that's life. It's all good. Don't worry about it.
And Sam Pentuple and I are going to start doing a podcast next week, and we want to cover a lot of legal topics, and we would like to see if you'd want to come in as a guest sometime and more give the less MAGA position, because he is very pro-MAGA, and I'm going to be more the moderator.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd be delighted to join. I got to get better at actually shouting out my channel when I do this shit. I constantly forget, but like this is, new to the game, figuring it all out. But yeah, man.
Yeah.
Hit me up. I'd be delighted to talk more.
Okay,
Yeah, absolutely, man. I keep that.
Oh. Okay, where are you at, dude? I gotta go. Oh, I should probably. It's a mechanical keyboard, that's why. All right. Thanks for watching.